The Miami Hurricanes are breaking the chains and washing away their yesterday. They are flying high like Superman. The stars have aligned above them in every way. And this 2020 season of absolute positivity continues to be just what the doctor ordered for a Canes program that suffered through the exact opposite of fate in 2019. It comes down to even this week, where a dangerous Wake Forest team was waiting on the schedule, has now been replaced by a Duke squad that has allowed 56 points in each of its last two games. Yes, sometimes everything does go right, including Miami rising to number 9 in the rankings despite not playing the last 2 weeks, though the College Football Playoff Committee did just release its own rankings tonight and placed the Canes at number 10. The Canes have the right kind of resume, though, as bowl season approaches and Miami eyes an Orange Bowl date with the loser of the SEC championship game that is expected to be between Alabama and Florida. Is it the Hurricanes' time to reestablish a presence on the national stage? We'll talk about all of that and more tonight as we begin a new edition of CaneSport Live, presented this evening by JFQ Lending, your full-service mortgage provider licensed in more than 40 states. Hello again, everybody. I'm Gary Ferman, the publisher of CaneSport.com, and we welcome you once again to CaneSport Live. As always, this is your show. It'll be driven by your participation. The call-in number is 563-999-3550. That's 563-999-3550. You know the drill by now. You hit the number 1. It puts you in the queue. If you come on the show in the order that you land in the queue. Over 100 open phone lines, plenty of room for everybody to call in and participate. So we encourage you to do so, and we always love to hear from first-time callers. We once again ask the subscribers at CaneSport.com to post the topics and questions that they would like to hear discussed on tonight's show, and we will address those as we move forward during the course of the evening. So before we get to your calls, I had a chance to touch on a couple of pertinent subjects this week with coordinators Rhett Lashley and Blake Baker. D'Eriq King obviously came to Miami with the intent of building a resume for the National Football League. First, I asked Lashley to talk about King's progress at Miami, how he has improved, and how it might impact his future as the NFL scouts look at him with a fine-tooth comb.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great question. Coach Diaz kind of heads up and handles all the, talking to a lot of the, representatives in that regard. I mean, people I've talked to, I know D'Eriq is held in high regard and very well respected among, everybody that is involved in the process of going to the next level. That definitely is a goal of his. I think he's done a really good job for us this year. Have not really got too in-depth in those talks with him just because we're still in the middle of our season. And, in fairness to him and our football team, that's really our focus. And it's weird that we've kind of had it interrupted for 3 weeks and we still got 3 games left here as we basically start December. But I think D'Eriq would be the first to tell you that's really what we're focused on now. And hopefully 3 or 4 weeks from now that conversation could maybe strike up. But I think it's a goal of his. I think he's definitely more than capable. And, obviously finishing strong at the end of this season is probably the most important thing.
How has he improved since, the first day you worked with him? And, how do you feel he's gotten better this year?
Yeah, I think probably just getting comfortable in what we're doing. And, he and I, working and kind of thinking together and thinking more alike. And I think everything helps. D'Eriq's always been able to throw a good deep ball. The first 3 or 4 games of the year we struggled, but I think that was we were struggling more than he was struggling. And I think as we got more on the same page with him and the wideouts, we got better at it. Obviously, there's concern when you have 3 weeks off. We've got to do our best to try to kind of get that rhythm going again. But I think sometimes the quarterback, bears a little bit of that brunt early in the season when things aren't going well. But it was kind of a team deal. I think he's been much more accurate, very efficient. I think he just understands what defenses are trying to do to him and to us, and does a good job of just, kind of taking what they're giving us and not trying to force things. He's done a really good job of protecting the football thus far, which has given us a chance to win pretty much every week.
And then on the other side of the ball, NFL draft projections have started popping up, and we're seeing Quincy Roche receiving a lot of attention, not as a defensive end, which is obviously what he's playing as a Hurricane, but as a linebacker. And I started thinking about it, and it conjured up memories of Anthony Chickillo, who also obviously played mostly defensive end at Miami and had an okay career. Nothing like totally off the charts, but then went to the National Football League and became a linebacker, and he's still in the league. So obviously that ended up being the right move. And I know a lot of you guys on the message boards and stuff were debating whether Chickillo should have been a linebacker all along as a Hurricane. And it comes up from time to time in those conversations about player development and things like that. So it made me wonder about what skill set the pros are seeing in that regard. And also why Blake Baker and Manny Diaz made the decision to utilize Roche as a defensive end this year. If you think about it, the team could not have been more in need of linebackers. There were a couple other defensive ends that maybe could have worked into the rotation. So I don't think it was like they didn't have options. So I had a chance to ask Baker about that a little bit, and here's what he said. Was looking at some NFL draft projections, and I noticed that the next level is looking at Quincy Roche a lot as a linebacker. And I wanted to get your opinion on what skills are you seeing that you think is inspiring that, and what went into the decision by you guys to utilize him as a defensive end as opposed to a linebacker.
I think, the part about using him at defensive end, I think, that's where he's most comfortable at. That's what he played at Temple. And, it's funny how the NFL sometimes labels linebackers or outside linebackers who are really just defensive ends, in a 4-3 scheme compared to a 3-4 scheme. So I think sometimes that kind of gets – those two positions overlap a lot, I would say. And I could definitely see Quincy, going to a 3-4 and being a super productive outside linebacker. He's a guy that really flourishes, and when he drops into zone, we don't utilize him that much in that department. But I know at Temple he did drop more often, especially on third down. They kind of dropped him in a little honey hole. But I also think he has incredible instincts. He could be a guy instinctively that does slide inside to an inside linebacker position because his instincts are really, really, really good. So I could see him being really productive at either one of those positions. But in our defense with a four down front and something we pride ourselves on is getting after the passer. He definitely checks all those boxes when it comes to getting after the quarterback.
So that's something for all of us to look forward to here in the coming months, to see where Quincy Roche gets drafted and then how he goes on into the National Football League and what kind of linebacker he becomes should it play out that way, and that be the position where they decide to try him out as a pro. All right, so that sets the table for tonight's show. One thing I'm really looking forward to in our 9 o'clock hour is our point counterpoint segment. And Bruce Warner and myself are going to be joined tonight by Leon Cyrsi, who's going to come on and talk a little bit and take some questions potentially about his new book that has come out called Fourth and Damn, which I have not had the chance to read yet, but from what I've heard has a lot of really cool stories. And Leon's been through a lot in his life. I mean, he went from being the highest paid offensive lineman in the National Football League to being broke. And so many of us see that happen to athletes through the years. It's happened to other Hurricanes in the past. Unfortunately, some of these kids just don't have the guidance and aren't prepared for what they're going to find when they get to the pro level, and they're not prepared to handle the dollars that are involved in that. And it's not always, we've seen so many great stories. Obviously, we have Hall of Famers that have come through, Coral Gables and things along that line. But not all the stories end the same way. And I think it's going to be really neat tonight to hear Leon talk a little bit about his journey, what inspired him to write a book about it, and maybe share a couple of the better stories with you guys. And if you're interested in getting that book, it's available at Amazon.com. You can go there. It's called Fourth and Dam. So you could find it pretty easily on Amazon and read about career and life of Leon Cyrsi. All right, so let's get out to your calls. The number, 563-999-3550, 563-999-3550. You hit the 1 on your keypad if you would like to come on the show. And let's go out now to the 941, where I believe the Mikester Cane awaits us in the number 1 spot. I know a few guys right now that are seething over that because they messaged me throughout the day and told me that they had every intention of being number 1 this evening, and the Mikester Cane was not one of them. So, Mikester, you're the man once again. Welcome back to CaneSport Live. How you doing tonight?
It's great to be back, Gary. How you doing, bud?
Doing good. Been a little boring without games, to the last few weeks.
I know. Tell me about it. I don't. Tell me about it. I mean, look, Clemson and Notre Dame are going to play each other for the ACC title game. I mean, we're locked out. I don't think there's going to be any hope for that. But anyway.
Yeah, but you know what, Mikester? That's the right two. Those are clearly the 2 best teams that are playing in the ACC this year.
Oh no, well, without a doubt, Gary. Without a doubt. So. Anyway, let's start off with a couple questions for you. There's a 5-star linebacker that decommitted from Tennessee, Terrence Lewis.
Terrence Lewis.
Yeah, that's it. Are they going to try to push hard and see if they can land him or not?
Well, they have been. They have been pushing hard, and
okay.
I don't think they're going to win. I think that right now it's looking to us like he's going to go to Texas A&M or Auburn. Has never really wanted to stay here. There were some issues earlier in his high school time. He's bounced around schools, and I think Miami dropped him for a while, and justifiably so. Right now they're trying to get the program turned around, and the last thing you want to do is start bringing kids into the. You feel like you're starting to get your culture straightened out a little bit. This has been a really good year this year, and the last thing I think you want to do is start bringing in recruits that are could potentially disrupt that or could be getting in trouble, things like that. So they passed early on him, and as he's kind of reestablished himself, they kind of softened on that a little bit. And I think right now, if he wanted to come to Miami, that they would take him. But that doesn't appear to be the case to us right now. Unless something changes, I think he's going to Texas A&M or Auburn.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, we'll pass up on that one then. And also, I heard they're still in the picture for Jake Garcia. Have you heard anything about that?
Yeah, we think that's a bad rumor. The information that we're getting on that it does not indicate that that's ever really been as live a possibility as maybe some down here have hoped it would be. I think Jake Garcia, he's a crafty kid now, and I think he's keeping his options open. In the event that there was a coaching staff change at USC.
Right.
But USC, I think, is 3-0 right now. So, I don't think that there's any dismay with the coaches right now at USC. It's looking like the staff's going to stick, and they're recruiting well, and on track to make it to the PAC championship game. So, I would say the chances of Jake Garcia flipping to Miami are very, very slim.
Very, very slim. Okay. Speaking of coaching change, I'm also hearing about possible candidate for Rhett Lashley of Vanderbilt. What's the situation with that?
My instinct is that will not happen. I think Rhett maybe is just a notch below the line to land that kind of job in the SEC. I think it's going to probably take a few more years, but then again, you never know. I mean, look what happened here. I mean, Manny Diaz, right place, right time, lands the Miami job, and we've seen other coaches also that you might not have suspected, and maybe they take a look at the impact that he's made at Miami, which is undeniable. I mean, and I think a lot of people have obviously noticed that, and maybe he does. But if I had to go make a bet right now, it would be that Rhett Lashley's back at Miami next year.
Right. Oh, your thoughts on Derek King too? Is he going to return? Any what's up with that too?
I would be surprised. I mean, return to do what? He's having a good year. I think he's showing the capabilities that he has, and I'm expecting him to go into the draft. It's not like he's going to be that much better of a player 12 months from now. I just don't see it. Like now, unless he looks at it from the standpoint of, I don't think I'm going to have a long career in the National Football League, and my education's important to me, and I can sit here and I can continue to build my free education as a graduate student, maybe at Miami, and just keep stacking diplomas on top of diplomas, or if he looks at it from that standpoint, then maybe he does decide to go back. But if he's looking at seeing if he can have a football career, I don't. I mean, as much as we all would love to see him come back, I just don't know what he would have to gain. I mean, all right, so maybe he's a little bit more serious of a Heisman contender next year, but we're going to lose some pretty good talent on the defensive side of the ball, and I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, if I had to make a bet on it right now, it would be that he goes and tests the waters in the draft.
That he goes along with Brevin Jordan, of course.
Brevin Jordan, I don't think is anywhere close to as clear cut. I really don't. Brevin Jordan's done nothing this year. I mean, of any, I mean, he's caught a few balls here and there, obviously, but like he has not established himself as a dominant football player. I think he needs to come back.
But he's been injured, of course.
I would feel bad for Will. Yeah, no, I understand, but but being injured has kept him from building a resume, and he's been injured a lot. And I think he's got to show that he can get through a football season and play consistently well every week. And if he does come back, that's not great for Will Mallory, who needs to showcase, because I think Will Mallory is a really good tight end and has been underutilized really this year. But we'll see what happens there. I mean, maybe we've seen guys be predisposed to doing this before, but I don't think he would be a first. He might not even make the second round if he goes out this year.
Right. Yeah, I kind of figured you would say that. But I'll tell you who's going to be great stars in the future is Jalen Knight and Don Chaney. Oh, my gosh, those guys are beasts. I mean, they're beasts. But anyway, also I heard that LSU got a decommit from Jalen Lee. Any thoughts of Miami possibly pursuing him, or are they going to let that go?
We have not heard that they're involved there. Not at this point.
Okay. What about offering 5 stars strong defensive end Corey Foreman? Anything on that?
No. That I think Clemson's been in the driver's seat there for a long time. I think USC is in the picture there. I know Oregon's in the picture there. Miami has never been involved there.
Also, I got a question on a couple of offensive linemen. What about Tristan Lay from Virginia and Bryce Foster? I think he's from Texas. He's a guard, big guard. It's like 328 pounds or something like that. Any thoughts or situation on that one?
I do think that they are looking for another offensive lineman. The name that we've heard is Austin Barber out of Jacksonville. He's been talking to Coach Justice, and from what we've heard, he's waiting until February to decide. It's also not certain that he's going to get an offer yet. So that's the only other offensive lineman that we know of right now that that really is in the picture.
Oh, okay. There was a wide receiver I was going to ask about too. It's on the tip of my tongue, and I can't think of it. He's in I think he's in IMG Academy. I can't think of his name.
Ja'Cory Brooks. You talking about Ja'Cory Brooks? Yeah, there's no signs that he's going anywhere but Alabama.
Oh, really? Okay, so that's pretty much dead in the water.
Yeah.
All righty. All right, Mike. Gary. Well, all right, I just wanted to do that to get the show started, and I'll let you go and get some other callers on the air, all right?
All right, Mike, thanks for being part of it as always. All right, 563-999-3550, 563-999-3550. You hit the number 1 on your keypad if you want to come on the show. Let's see who's up next. Who made the number 2 spot? This looks like our man James. Welcome back to CaneSport Live.
Hey, what's up, Gary?
I know all the phone numbers now. You know, we've been doing this for so long.
That's true.
But I swear I never bother you during the week, right, James? I've never called you.
That is correct. Even though I'd love to talk Canes football with you anytime you ever want to call. So please.
All right, I'll keep that in mind. You know, if I'm ever just sitting around and I'm tired of all these shows that the wife has me watching, I'm gonna say, you know what? I'm gonna pick up the phone and I'm gonna call James and talk some Canes. I'll remember that.
That'd be fun to do one night if we were both bored. A couple of things, Gary, I wanted to ask you because I know it's really early. Are you kind of surprised with how? I mean, we've talked about it at the beginning of the year with how this is kind of like maybe a year that's a wash across the board because you don't really have fans in the stands, revenue with teams and things like that. Are you surprised this many coaching changes have been made by some of these programs and there's still some coming in? And I'm going to get somewhere with that once you answer my question.
You're saying, am I surprised that there are or not going to be a lot of coaching changes?
No, that there are, despite with all the with everything going on right now, with like how the revenues are not really coming in with not having fans in the stands and things like that. Like, are you surprised by this? Because this was a kind of a year where people were going to get extra eligibility, things like that.
I mean, some of these programs like a Vanderbilt, for example, they're nowhere. I don't think their buyout was probably really big, and they're not taking this giant leap by changing coaches. A school like Michigan with like a Harbaugh would be, a school like Texas with a Herman probably would be. So I don't know. I would be surprised. Yeah, I think it's hard when you've asked people to take pay cuts, when you furloughed people, when you've gone through all the revenue issues that all these schools have gone through under COVID. I think it's hard to justify paying all these millions of dollars of buyouts for football coaches. So I am not anticipating a lot of movement and a lot of changes in college football. Now, I know there have been a few, and maybe I end up being wrong on this, but I just think it's a bad look, and I do not anticipate there being a lot of it.
Gotcha. I'm just curious because, I mean, it seems like the rumors are that, you look at Michigan every week and it's like, look how much money they're paying Harbaugh and he hasn't done anything for them. And you look at, how much money Texas has thrown in Herman and they're still trying to find the answer down there. And I guess my question is if one of those programs was to make a move and get rid of those two, are there any prospects whatsoever either that could maybe be grad transfers or recruits that we're looking at either of those programs that might swing our way in positions of need that you think, Gary?
I don't think so, James, and here's why. If they change coaches at one of those schools, they're going to go get a big they're not changing coaches to just hire anybody. Like Texas, if they get rid of Tom Herman, it's going to probably be because they've been able to talk Urban Meyer into taking the job, for example.
Gotcha.
So, yeah, I mean, and if Urban Meyer's coming in, unless he's jettisoning kids, I don't think you're going to have a massive exodus out of the program. I mean, kids will be excited that Urban Meyer's now coming in, just like all the fans would be. So, we'll see how it all plays out. I'm not anticipating that. I do think that they'll dip into the transfer portal again and get a couple guys to kind of fortify the team. But I think it's a pipe dream. if we
Yep.
expect them to continue to keep getting the level of players in the transfer portal that they've gotten the last couple of years. I think the stars have kind of aligned, with Phillips and Bolden, having some ties to Brevin Jordan and things like that, and with Tate Martell originally being here, and I don't, and then of course, this year obviously getting De'Ara King because of Lashley and things like that. Like things just like perfectly have fallen into place, kind of like everything has this year. But I don't see that it being reality for us to be counting on the transfer portal to this degree, to where our top 5-6 players came through the transfer portal. I mean, that's just not, to me, sustainable. And if it is sustainable, it means that we're not very good. So, we'll see how it plays out. But I do think they'll get a couple.
Gotcha. Well, now moving back to the Canes, and I appreciate you talking about that, because I was just kind of curious and wanting your thoughts and what you hear through the grapevines of talking with other writers and other people that cover other programs and so forth. So I appreciate that. As far as the Canes go this season, I think that you said that you were looking at maybe 9 wins based on the original schedule. And, of course, we've now traded Wake Forest out for Duke, and it should be a victory this week. If we don't, there's something seriously wrong. But, the team has been rusty. They haven't played. But I expect them to come out and kick some serious ass this week and get ready for the game that we've really circled all season long, and it's North Carolina, to see, how do we match up with a team like that? Because realistically, this would be like for the Coastal. I know we really don't have a shot at the ACC championship per se, but realistically, this is the game that it was going to come down to anyway for the Coastal. And it kind of just shows where you're at, if you're still the best in the Coastal, or are you still like the second or third. And I'm looking forward to that next week. But that being said, what are your thoughts, Gary, on the team so far, like the camaraderie? Has the winning cured the things in the locker room? I know you're not really around it as much because of the COVID situation, but have you heard anything that the camaraderie is better this year than it has maybe been in the past couple of years, and maybe cancer's not being in the locker room?
Yeah, I mean, everything we hear is a total, complete reversal from last year on that front, and I think we see it in the product on Saturdays. I mean, it gets a little cliche-ish at times, the way Manny talks about it, but, we hear him referring to the togetherness and how they hang in there during games and how they play for each other in the fourth quarter and how much that's helped them get the results that they've gotten and things like that. And yeah, even though it's a little bit sappy or whatever, I mean, I think there's some legitimacy to it. I mean, they certainly haven't fallen apart. You haven't seen any signs that they are not wound together like you would want to be. I think they've gone through a lot of adversity this year, obviously, and I think that people probably don't realize or give respect to the amount of stress that these kids have been under for several months now, just trying to stay away from COVID, having to be afraid to be around their peers. Obviously they're young guys. They want to be around girls and things like that. And, it's been a lot of pressure, and we've seen it break down here the last few weeks with a lot of guys on the team and a lot of people around the program getting COVID. And it kind of tells you that eventually it's going to catch up to you. It's going to get you. And, that came for all those months to be as good with it as they were. I'm sure came with an enormous amount of stress, individual stress, collective stress. It has not been a normal season. They didn't train properly. You didn't have spring practice. They haven't been developed as they normally would have in a typical year. And maybe that's affected some individual performances in games, not just for the Canes, but for the teams that the Canes are playing. And it's just been a very, very abnormal situation. So, yeah, I mean, I think that every sign has been that everything's really good in the locker room. And, we don't know of any real problems in there right now. And that's a good thing.
It is. Couple last things, Gary. With the season, we have this potential to finish out, with these next 3 games, winning them, be a 10-1 season, absolute berth to the Orange Bowl, I would say, no doubt, with a chance to play the Gators. How big would that be for the program to finish, moving forward? I'm thinking long term, not like a checkers move, but like a chess move, that this program does, finish out this season strong with winning these next 3 games, plus maybe even beating Florida in the Orange Bowl. How big is that for the program? And maybe does that, I don't want to say that back crap yet, but I'm just saying, does it make them a contender and maybe legitimize Manny with the recruits maybe in the next few classes coming up and so forth, especially with state bragging rights on the line as well?
Well, I think there's several layers to that question, and I mean to the answer to that question. And would a win over Florida in the Orange Bowl give Manny legitimacy? I think it would. I think it's the kind of legitimacy that he needs very badly. I think that it's an opportunity. It would be an opportunity, and the worst thing that could happen is you get your butt kicked like you did against Clemson, and you know that you still got miles to go to get the football team to the point where it's a true national contender, not a pretend national contender, a true national contender. So to me, that's the downside. That's the worst thing that happens is you find out what you already suspect. Because I think we found that out in the Clemson game. In this case, it would be a glorified home game, so maybe it would make things a little bit more advantageous for the Canes in that one. But I think anybody that's watched the 2 teams play this year probably say that Florida's roster is probably a little bit better right now, but I don't think that necessarily means Miami can't be competitive. I mean, we found out a couple of years ago that Miami was very competitive against Florida. I think this Florida is better than that Florida, but I think it would be the perfect way to end this season because it would give you a final exam. And I love that idea of a final exam. But I don't think that it necessarily translates into anything next year because I think next year's team could have an entirely different look. If you're talking about, losing Phillips and Roche and, King and, maybe a couple other guys. We don't really know what they're all going to do, but it's going to take. If you just lose King, it's going to take on a whole nother look. And if then you add Phillips to that, who I think you're definitely going to lose. And I don't think it applies. Like I don't think what happens in the Orange Bowl would apply to next year. So I would be careful about projecting that. And I think we learned a little bit about that in 2017 when we started out 10-0. And the next year we came back and went 7-6. So, there was no carryover, from the success of 2017. To me, that's what will measure Manny Diaz. Not so much what he's done this year, but how he's able to build on what he's done this year. He's had a great year, made a lot of great moves. They've won some close games. They're in the top 10. This year has been an absolute 100% win for Manny and the program and everybody. I think it's taken some of the pressure off Blake a little bit. I mean, there had to be a little, knot in his stomach the way last year went, and I think he's been able to exhale a little bit. I don't think there's any question that by putting this season together, that Manny has bought himself security in his job at a minimum for a few more years. I mean, I don't think it would even be in question, and it's deserved. I mean, the guy made every move he made since last December has been a right move and a winning move, and he deserves just a whole mountain load of credit for that. So I hope I answered your question. I think I just think there's a lot of layers to it, and there's no just one answer to one thing. I think there's just different aspects involved there.
And of course, we have to do our part and win to even get to that point too, because as we know, as years past, things have happened that haven't quite worked out that way. One last point, Gary.
Well, yeah, but you know what? I mean, I'm looking even like North Carolina. I mean, I'm expecting Miami to win handily this Saturday. The North Carolina game, I personally think can go either way. But even a 2-loss Miami, I think would get the Orange Bowl bid over a 3-loss North Carolina team. So we'll see.
I think so too. I think so too. One last point, Gary. I agree with you that I think Miami wins this Saturday pretty handily at Duke. Do you have any insight of who do you think would get the snaps if we're up pretty high and we take King out to maybe get that quarterback of the future ready for next year between Cosey and Van Dyne? Who do you think it would be?
Man, I'll tell you, I wish it would be Van Dyke. I mean, I feel like
too.
we know what Nkosi can do. You know, I mean, I would love to see Tyler Van Dyke for at least a quarter and a half. But I don't know. You know, I don't know what they're going to do, and they're not going to tell us in advance. And
Exactly.
you know, I mean, who deserves to go in first? Nkosi. He's been the number 2 quarterback all year. But to me, I understand that he deserves to go in first because of that. But I think it's very important to see what Tyler Van Dyke looks like in a real football game, and we've seen a lot of Nkosi in real football games. So, you know, and I don't think they're going to get the opportunity to do it against North Carolina. I don't think they're going to get the opportunity to do it in the bowl game. They might get the opportunity if things go well against Georgia Tech, if that game actually even gets played. But you know, I don't know. I would love to see them jump all over Duke, who I just don't see what Duke is going to be playing for this weekend. So I expect Miami to win this game handily. I would love to see them get up enough to where they felt comfortable putting Van Dyke into the game just to see what he can do.
Exactly, because I'd rather.
But I'm not going to predict it's going to happen. I won't predict it's going to happen, James. Yeah.
Exactly. I just wish the staff, and I agree with you, Gary. I just wish the staff would really take a hard look, appreciate what you've got. You've got Game Silva Perry. You know what he can do. But the truth of the matter is, if Rhett's going to be here next year, which I believe he will be, I really believe this staff needs to start looking. If De'Eric isn't going to come back, which it looks like he's not, do you need to get this kid reps? Because realistically, if the schedule holds true, your first game is going to be against who I think is going to be the defending national champions, Alabama, next year. And that's not who you want him to go up against the first game. You know what I mean? Just for live game reps, per se. So, but anyway, Gary, love the show. Take care of yourself, bud, and go Canes.
All righty, James, thanks for being part of it. All right, 563-999-3550, 563-999-3550 is the number. Hit the 1 on your keypad if you want to come on the show. We're going to go out now to our CaneSport managing editor, Matt Chodell, who makes his regular visit to CaneSport Live. And, Matt, what's on your mind this week? How have you enjoyed the last few weekends to – I don't know, eat stone crabs or whatever and chill out?
I mean, a couple of trips out getting some stone crabs, but I mean, it's nice to have some football to cover and to watch. So at least we're back in that routine. I mean, it's a little weird. You know, it's just been a weird year.
Well, you know, I guess you won't get mad at me if I share this story. It was kind of funny, and I was sitting there. I think it was a Saturday afternoon watching a little football, and my phone goes off, and I see this picture of Matt on a boat with a stone crab that literally was almost as big as him. Like, I have never seen a stone crab in my life as big as this thing. And, you know, Matt likes to go out and, you know, fish for these guys every now and then. And I got to give you credit, man. That was a monster. I know you didn't have to do a lot of work to get it, but like, wow. I mean, this thing literally was, I mean, I'm trying to figure out, like, as big as a cat, would you say, Matt? Like a grown cat? like it was a big stone crab.
It was like the size of Vince Wilfork's bicep muscle. It was pretty big.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't take pictures of stone crabs ever, and that was when I take a picture of a stone crab, you know it's like a it's like a different species. You know, it was crazy. Yeah, it was really big.
Well, I think we could say it was a monster stone crab.
That is fair to say.
Like, for those of you that eat stone crabs, I would say the claws were not colossal; they were double colossal. How about that?
Yeah, it was crazy.
All right, so Hurricanes, they lose Wake Forest, and they pick up Duke. And I talked about it at the beginning of the show, and I just saw that as a continuation of the fortunes that they've found this whole year, because I was, you know, a few weeks ago, I would have said that the Wake Forest game was a trap. Like, when I watched Wake Forest this year, I was impressed with their effort. They had a very good offense. They could score points, and they played just incredibly hard. And I thought they were going to give Miami a very hard game at home, and I don't feel Duke is going to be as positioned to do so, even though Duke has beaten the Canes 2 years in a row now.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, look, Wake Forest had sort of been on a roll, you know. I mean, they beat Virginia pretty easily, beat Virginia Tech, which was number 19, beat Syracuse, and then almost beat North Carolina, which is a pretty good team. So, yeah, I don't think that was going to be an easy game at all. At the same time, I sort of would have liked to see Miami play Wake Forest because, you know, you sort of need to get a gauge on where you're at. I mean, you know, beating Virginia Tech by 1 point, barely beating NC State, you know, barely beating Virginia. There's just, you know, still some question marks, like that you're not quite sure what you have. A really convincing win against Wake Forest, you know, might have really helped Miami, you know, not just, you know, for Miami fans, but sort of nationally, like to say, hey, you know, this is the kind of win Miami needs. Because, look, beating Duke by 30 or 40 points, no one's going to say, oh, wow, you know, Miami's really looking good. But you beat Wake Forest pretty handily. People will say, man, you know, this team's really developing. Manny Diaz and those guys have this thing rolling. They're looking really good at the end of the season. Because let's face it, the biggest criticism that Miami's gotten in recent years is they fade at the end of the year, right around now, right? And there would have been nothing better than beating a pretty good Wake Forest team handily. You beat Duke, no one's going to bat an eyelash, you know. I mean, they'll still have one more chance against North Carolina, which is obviously a good team, but not a great record. But, you know, you beat North Carolina handily, at least that's something to hang your hat on. But then that might be it. You know, I don't know if that Georgia Tech game is going to happen, and then you just have a bowl game. So it would have been nice to have a couple of tougher games at the end of the year just so Miami and Manny Diaz could really say, look, you know, to recruits and fans, like, look what we did. You know, we had a tough situation. Yes, we had some close games against, you know, maybe average ACC teams, but we finished strong against a couple of really good ACC teams, which would have really, to me, been a huge uplifting thing heading into next year. Now you're playing a bad Duke team, maybe a bad Georgia Tech team, and then a North Carolina team that, you know, has had some ups and downs. So it's not ideal. I personally would rather they played Wake Forest. I don't know if they look at it as a blessing or not. I guess if you want a good record, it's a blessing. But to me, it's you know, I don't enjoy games where you're supposed to win by, you know, 15, 20, or 30 points. Like, I like competitive games where Miami can beat a good team or has a chance to beat a good team and sort of show what they're all about.
3 weeks without a game, do you think that affects them?
I don't see how it can't. You know, I mean, it's such a strange season, and we really haven't gotten an answer from coaches about what kind of shape the team's in. All we know is that Manny Diaz said players are still going to be missing in the game. All we know is that the strength coach, David Feely, is sort of saying that guys did what they were supposed to do at home on their own, which they're college students. You know, I don't know how hard they really worked or didn't work, you know, without necessarily knowing there was going to be another game even at that point. I mean, there was such a big outbreak on the team. So I don't think we'll really know until Saturday, you know, what's going on and how this, you know, shutdown for 2 to 3 weeks really affects the team. You know, it's just, to me, it's still an unanswered question. I don't think we can say, oh, it's not going to be a big effect or, oh, it's going to be a big effect, because they're not really sharing information on exactly what they did. I mean, I spoke to David Feely for half an hour, and I couldn't get out of him, like, exactly what he was asking kids to do, other than the fact that he sent them, you know, plans, what they should do, not, oh, I checked with them and they all were doing it, or, oh, you know, they're doing great. You know, I mean, he's talking about, you know, GPS monitors that are telling him that they're in great shape, but I don't think a kid running 20 miles an hour tells you he's going to be able to play 70 snaps on Saturday. So we'll have to wait and see.
Manny kind of indicated that they were going to get guys back potentially in stages this week. It wasn't going to all be everybody was here today and yesterday and was practicing the entire week. That different guys would be coming back at different times during the week, and that was if they passed their tests and things like that. So that's a little bit of a subplot. They are still dealing with COVID and managing that as they prepare for the game, but fortunately it's not the North Carolina game that they're trying to do it. It's the Duke game, so that should help them a little bit. Matt, we are 2 weeks away from the early signing period, and I know you spend a lot of time talking to these kids, and I mean, what a bizarre recruiting year. No official visits. I know the bulk of the class is local. And so the kids have over multiple years built up relationships with most of the staff. So that, that's a good thing, I think. But in general, it's just, been the strangest of recruiting years to cover for us. And, your overall thoughts on just how it's gone, and do you think Miami should be happy with the class that they have been able to put together?
Oh, yeah. No, I think this class is really, really good. I mean, look, I'm not a big guy into rankings and star systems and all that. I think they're ranked like 11th right now. But, they're pretty much hitting the numbers they want, the quality they want, which is what I look for. What I don't like to see in a recruiting class, and again, forget the rankings and all that, what you don't want to see is these like late offers being thrown at numerous positions, right, which has happened in the past. That's when you get your plan B, plan C guys like, oh, my gosh, I thought we were going to get this guy, and now we're not. We got to just find another guy, to fill a spot. You're not seeing that in this class, which is good. They have 21 commitments. They dropped one of them, who they thought, wasn't going to fit in and be able to play at Miami. So from 22 to 21, there might be another one that drops off. So we'll have to see what happens there. Of course, that's Savion Collins. But, notwithstanding, you got 20, to 21 solid commits, and they've been committed for a while, and they're not wavering, which the shutdown actually helps with that because, we've seen so many kids take visits, and then all of a sudden, there's a lot of drama, which I know fans like, but it's not really good for the program or for the coaches. So having this many solid commits to the positions they want, and you don't see a lot of these, real plan B and C guys coming out of the woodwork. I mean, there's been I think 3 of them at cornerback, but that was after they basically decided one of their cornerbacks they had committed, they couldn't really use him because he was just not what they wanted. So, we'll have to see what happens. I mean, if they can add another quality cornerback, maybe even 2 cornerbacks, that would be huge. There's a chance, maybe to add a Terrence Lewis, although, not looking that likely right now, but you never know. Mason Smith and out of the picture with the top-rated recruit in the entire country. I mean, that's something right there. So they're still taking their shots at the end, and we'll see what happens. I mean, it's a good enough situation right now where they got an offensive lineman named Austin Barber out of Jacksonville, who I think wants to come to Miami. He's just waiting to see if they have room for him. This is a former Minnesota commitment. I know he doesn't have a ton of offers, but it's a sign that, Miami isn't just basically throwing out offers. They don't have a lot of spots. They got guys they wanted, and that's all you can ask for.
Well, as you know, every week we ask the posters at CaneSport.com to submit questions for the show, and one of the ones that came in this week was asking about whether the recruiting class is good enough and the amount of talent on paper. Is it a good enough class to win championships? That was the gist of the question, and that made me take a step back and take a little bit of a closer look. When I look at the Rivals 250, for example, Miami has 2 commits in the top 100. Number 19, James Williams, number 39, Leonard Taylor. So really 2 in the top 50, and that is way better than Miami's been doing lately. Like most of these guys from South Florida who have been ranked anywhere close to that level have all been getting away. So that's a big forward step. Okay. And then I take a look a little deeper and I say, let me go see what's up with Clemson, because Clemson is the team that the Hurricanes have to catch to win absolutely anything in football. It sucks because of how good they are and how good they've been. We'll see if they can sustain it. But so far they are sustaining it, and it's a fact of life. Unless Miami gets its act together to that degree, it cannot win anything again in football, because to win anything you have to be able to win the ACC. So Clemson has 5 in the top 100. Miami has 2. So I saw that. Okay, not really that surprised. So then I went to the next 100. Numbers 100 to 200, and Miami had 5 in the next 100. Lawrence Seymour at 151, Brashard Smith at 158, although I do think personally that he's a little underrated. Number 171, Romello Brinson, number 189, Cam Kinchins, and number 197, Jacoby George. Well, then you take a look at Clemson. They have 6 in the next 100. So that's 11 for Clemson, 7 for Miami in the top 200. So, and the Tigers might pick up 1 or 2 more. So are we recruiting well enough? I would say personally it's better because of Williams and Taylor, but I would still say it's not yet where it needs to be. Your thoughts?
I mean, I would, not to disagree with you too much, but I mean, I would not look at the rankings like that, because there are times when you'll see a recruit commit to an Alabama or an Ohio State or a Clemson, and all of a sudden the next, ratings come out and he's shot up. I mean, it's just sort of the nature of the beast that, oh my gosh, if these top coaches who have coached these championship teams want that kid, he must be amazing. Let's look at his film again. And you're already looking at the film now with a preconceived notion that, wow, these, guys getting paid millions of dollars to look at this film have already said this kid's a 5-star in their minds. And, there's a reason why these kids make jumps up in the rankings. So I would love to, sort of see where some of these kids were ranked before Clemson offered, before Alabama offered, right? Because they really didn't have rankings. So, that's why I'm saying a lot of times these stars, they don't mean a lot to me. Rankings don't mean a lot to me. To me, they're just fun. They're entertainment for the fans. It's great. But to say that a class isn't good because, a rival's analyst is re-ranking a kid after he commits or gets offers from top schools, which does happen, not all the time, but it does happen a lot. To me, it doesn't bother me. Miami could have you could have Miami with all 0-ranked kids. If Miami did a good job evaluating them, and if Miami, basically wasn't doing plan B, plan C stuff for them, offered them, at a point where they had proved to Miami they deserved an offer and could play at Miami to be an outstanding player at Miami, I don't care if they have 0 stars, all of them. It doesn't bother me.
And
like I said before, like I said before, this is not a class where Miami's just offering kids late. So I think they've gotten the kids they want, which I think is all you can ask for.
And I think we have to remember also that they had to recruit mostly South Florida kids. They couldn't really build relationships with kids from outside of South Florida, certainly even harder from outside the state. But I also don't think that's an excuse, because when you look at some of the schools that do have the top recruiting classes, they were able to do that. So it's not like it was impossible to do. All right. So, and I try to keep the analysis of these things balanced. I'm not sitting here trying to be, a raving homer and analyzing this. I'm trying to analyze it objectively and give a real true opinion on this. And one other thing did also stand out to me. There are 17, and it doesn't matter whose rankings you look at. This is pretty constant. There are 17 top 100 kids from the state of Florida, and Miami's getting 2 of them. And I would like to see that number go up at least double, and even triple, for me to say that recruiting here is getting to be as good as it needs to get. For example, Alabama, which isn't even in the state of Florida, is getting 2 of the top 3 kids from the state. And they're also getting Ja'Cory Brooks, who's a Miami product. So in all, they have 7 of the top 50 kids from Florida, and 13 of the top 100 going to Alabama. So that's elite recruiting to me. And the only comparison you really have is to look at what Alabama's doing, look at what Clemson's doing, look at what Ohio State's doing, because those are the teams that are having success. And if you're talking about wanting to become a playoff team and wanting to compete for national championships at Miami again, you have to be able to get to that kind of level. So, I think it's a very good recruiting class, and, you could chime in here, but when I go through it, and we'll talk more about it here maybe next week or something, but as we get closer to signing day, but when you look at it, they don't have a quarterback, which to me is a disappointment. I know that they're still hoping to flip Jake Garcia, but I think in a perfect world, you would love to have one of the top high school quarterbacks in the country in your recruiting class right now. They don't have that. So, so right now, depending on where things go from here, who maybe they can get in the transfer portal or something along those lines, you would have to say quarterback is a disappointment. Thaddeus Franklin at running back, I personally think he's a good player. I'm not sure that he's going to come in and beat out Jalen Knighton and Don Chaney. And we don't even know yet. Cam Harris will probably be back next year too. So you're looking at a kid that's going to probably come in and be like the number 4 or 5 running back. I do like the receivers a lot. I think Romello Brinson, Jacoby George, and Brashard Smith are going to very quickly compete for playing time here. Is one of them elite? We'll see. I think Smith has a chance to be really, really good because just like we see Mike Harley standing out in this Rhett Lashley offense. I think Smith has the skill set to maybe take advantage of some of the same matchups that Lashley is able to create for Harley, and could have a really, really solid career. And I like Brinson and George as more of outside receivers. I think both are good prospects, and that'll be interesting. I love Elijah Arroyo as a tight end prospect. Has been looking very good in Texas. We'll see on Khalil Brantley. I'm not as sure on him. I'm not 100% sold on the offensive line class. I see McLaughlin as a project. I think Seymour might have some size issues at the next level. We'll have to see how that plays out. I think Ryan Rodriguez is a good center prospect, but maybe along the lines of like Corey Gaynor, hasn't been a great player at Miami. I mean, he's been a good center. So I'll stop there, Matt, for a moment. Any additional thoughts you have on the offensive class?
I mean, I agree that the quarterback is a disappointment. I mean, with the way this offense has been doing, it's sort of surprising to me that they can't find somebody at a high enough level, a dual threat quarterback that would be interested in basically being the only real dual threat quarterback on the team next year, assuming D'Eriq King leaves. I mean, because D'Eriq did so well, you've got to think there's such a huge opening for that. And I don't know if that's because the shutdown hurt them or what, but it's very surprising to me that they couldn't get a top recruit, a 4-star type player, so to speak, that's a dual threat in this class. I don't understand it. But yeah, I mean, all the other points you made, I agree with. There's just, there's a lot of unknowns. Offensive line in particular is very tough to project out to the next level. And because you got to think most offensive linemen, you don't want them to play until, generally their third year, maybe their second year. So, a guy who's a project, that's okay on the offensive line. What you don't want is a project at wide receiver, right? So, I mean, having Michael McLaughlin already at 295, and yeah, he is a project because he's a tight end last year. So he has to really pick up on the nuances of everything they want him to do at offensive line. But, I mean, you say 3 years from now, he should be pretty darn good, which is how they have to get back to being on offense. You don't want all these freshmen and second-year guys playing a lot. You really want to get to the third and fourth year guys, and then the handful of fifth year guys that stick around to be the core of your team every year. So, hopefully they can get back to that.
And defensively, I'm not going to go into great detail right now. We'll do that down the road here. But, I think, you look at defensive line class, obviously Leonard Taylor stands out. I think he's a guy that has the potential to be an elite football player. Ishmael, I mean, people feel pretty good about. It'll be interesting to see how he factors in at the defensive end spot with, a couple other, talented young guys already ahead of him in progression by years. So, that'll be interesting. Thomas Davis, one of the rare out-of-state kids that they were able to get coming in as a defensive end outside linebacker type prospect, I think has some potential. But, at linebacker, I think, Chase Smith is a kid to keep an eye on as a striker. Troutman's done some good things. But the point I'm making as we go through this, defensive back Cam Kinchens, obviously James Williams is a kid, a 5-star kid coming in as a safety. We don't know where he'll land position-wise in college, but he should be a really, really good football player, obviously. So there's some good players. I think time will tell, and it's going to be how the Cam Kinchens develop, how the Romello Brinsons develop, the Jacoby Georges develop, the Smiths develop. How all those kids develop will determine how great the recruiting class really is. But to get back to the original question, is it a class that will that will directly impact winning a championship? We'll have to see, because I think you got to remember, you're picking up some good players, but you're also going to be subtracting some good players. When you look at a Jalen Phillips, is Jabari Ishmael going to be able to come in and replace what you're losing in Jalen Phillips? There's no way in hell anybody's going to predict that right now. Even like a Leonard Taylor, is Leonard Taylor going to be as impactful of a defensive tackle as Phillips and Greg Russo last year? Even Quincy Roche, is he going to be as impactful of a defensive lineman as these guys that you're subtracting? So you just don't know, and there's too many unknowns. And but I think it's a positive that they were able to get the bulk of the good players from South Florida. And I think you gotta seize on any positives right now, and it'll be interesting to see just how these kids develop and where it goes. So, Matt, any final thoughts?
No, I mean, just on defense, I would add, they are after some top guys. I mean, if they could pull up a miracle, like, last year with Avante Williams was somewhat of a miracle. Like if they could land a Mason Smith or a Terrion Arnold, even, Markevious Brown is certainly still in the picture, if you can get any of those guys or two of those guys, I mean, that would be, that would make this, to me, a championship level recruiting class. I mean, that's how close they are, if they can get two of those three guys and they're in the picture with them, then James Williams. I mean, can you imagine if you have James Williams, Leonard Taylor, and
Mason Smith?
And let's say you get Mason Smith. How do you not call that a championship level class? I mean,
no, I agree. That would be Mason Smith makes it obviously off the charts.
So let's just wait and see. I mean, right now LSU is the team to beat, but Miami's probably the number 2 pick right now. And if something happens with LSU, you never know. I mean, crazier things have happened. So jury's still out. They got a couple of weeks left. It's going to be, interesting to see. I mean, Manny Diaz seems very optimistic. They're going to add a few more pieces to this class. And when, the kids we've been talking to and the people we've been talking to around the kids, it's just, you don't really see it where you're like, okay, this is definitely going to be a kid coming to the class. I mean, right now, the most likely out of all the kids we probably talked about is Markevious Brown, but like he's telling multiple schools that he's planning to go there. So, this is what happens in recruiting, right? So it's just so up in the air, which is what makes it fun and maybe frustrating for some people. But, we're going to have to wait and see how it plays out. It's like a little too early to say, oh, it's not a good enough class or it's a great class. Because if they could add just a couple more kids that are top level kids, this could really be an amazing class.
Well, and for people that don't know who Mason Smith is, he's from Louisiana. He's a defensive tackle, and he's the number 1 ranked player in the country by Rivals. So to land a guy like that would obviously take this deal to a whole nother level. And then the original question, I think, would have to be answered a little bit differently. But any way you look at it, this has been a step forward this year. Just still a long way to go would be the way that I would leave it. All right, Matt. Well, thanks as always for your contribution, and we'll catch up with you again next week.
Sounds good. I'm going to go eat some stone crabs. I'll catch you later.
You do that. Don't get indigestion, though. It's late. All right, 563-999-3550, 563-999-3550. The great Leon Cyrsi is going to be joining us momentarily, but let me try to fit in another call or two first. Let's go out to the 305. You're live on CaneSport Live. How you doing this evening?
Good, Gary. How are you?
Hey, what's up, Adam? How you doing this week?
Good. A couple things. On the recruiting front, do you see Miami being a player for the Nebraska recruit out of Northwestern? I think his name is Patrick Payton, or with Ishmael and a couple other DNs, are we pretty much filled with that spot?
Yeah. Listen, if he's being, they're looking at him. Okay, he's one of those guys they're thinking about. If they offer him, I think he'll go to Miami. But we just don't know what the final result is there yet. Other than him, I think if another defensive lineman is added, it would be Mason Smith.
Okay. Yeah, because with what's going on with LSU and all their problems there, you just don't know if he'll come down. I've heard that Leonard Taylor's in his ear about coming to Miami. Also, any chance that you could see somebody like I saw that Terrion Arnold released his top 5. Is Miami definitely out of it with him, or can they still get back in it with him?
We do not think that they're alive there.
Okay. A couple other things. Is Manny going to be able to coach the game this Saturday, because I saw that he had COVID, and I don't know
he's
what
back.
The protocol with him.
He came out of quarantine on Monday. He's back.
Okay. And with Duke being as down as they are, and I know they've beaten us the past 2 years, do you see, like, you've been around the team enough to know, is there maturity with this team that they won't overlook Duke? Because
I think they'll be chomping at the bit because they haven't been playing. I mean, so no, I don't think they'll overlook Duke. I'm expecting them to stomp Duke. I'd be more concerned if I was Duke, like having any enthusiasm whatsoever for this game. Like, they gave up 56 points the last two games they've played. So, they can't be feeling really good about Duke football right now. I'm sure they're about ready to pack it in.
Okay. And a couple other things. Have you seen anything from Van Dyke? Assuming that, like, this year, I know, like, have you seen him at practice to make you think?
No,
that
we haven't because of COVID. Because of COVID, Adam, we haven't been able to go out there. So I can't tell you firsthand how he's. We just can go by what we're told, and in conversations we have with different people that are there, and we're told he's doing fine. That they're happy with him, but right now it's the Eric King show, so it's not even relevant.
Okay, and I'm assuming that they're going to put, with 2020 being like a wash in terms of scholarships, do you see Miami assuming that King leaves, looking at the transfer market? Because I imagine it's going to be a mad dash with free agency. It's going to be like free agency in the NFL this offseason with the transfer portal more than in the past couple of years.
Yeah, but you got to remember. I mean, I don't think numbers is not an insignificant issue. I mean, it sounds appealing. Hey, let me load my football program up with 120 players, but you can only play. There can only be 22 guys starting at a time, and you start putting 100 guys on a bench hoping to get into games. That's not a recipe for success, quite frankly. So, and plus it gets very expensive. Like every football player costs money. So, and a lot of it. So, we'll see what happens. I think that with the success that they've had in the transfer portal, I think you'll always see Miami looking at the transfer portal, and I would expect them to add a few guys here this year. But do I think that you're going to see like a dozen guys added to the roster out of the transfer portal? I personally don't, but we'll see. Okay.
And a couple other things. One, do you think and I think you mentioned this earlier, that Jalen Phillips is a true 50-50 because he's really only had 1 year of a body of work because he was so injury prone at UCLA? That
you mean 50-50 to go pro?
Yeah. Or do you think he's gone because of how good he's been this year?
I think that there's no question that he's going to go out. I mean, look at how he's played. I mean, it would be foolish for him to come back for another college season.
Okay.
He'll be a first or second round draft pick for sure.
Okay, and the other kids, I think you touched on this. The other three are like Borregales. Obviously, kickers don't get drafted high to begin with, but do you see him like going pro this year?
Yeah, I do. I don't see where he has like I think he's kicked so well that there's no reason for him not to go pro. If he's good enough, he's not going to get better in a year. Like he's already at a top level. So yeah, I got to think he's going out. He's going also. That's what I would think.
Okay. And then players like, and a couple more like Harley and Carter. You see them coming back next year? Because
Harley, yes. Carter, yes. Yeah, I would think they both come back.
Okay.
Although I what? I don't know. I don't know on Carter.
Okay.
I can't say I really know on either one of them because Harley's had put together a good string of games here. Like, what's his upside? How's he going to get better? I mean, he's not going to do better than what he's done the last few weeks. So maybe he does go out and just see where he falls. Very hard to predict both of those guys because Carter, being a senior, is he going to get any better next year? Probably not. So it might make sense. At worst, they're going to get free agent looks. So it might make sense for them to go out and give it a shot.
And the last one I wanted to ask about was Bubba Bolden. Do you see him leaving early?
He's a little trickier decision because he has so much upside, and he's kind of hurt himself the last month, I think, by not playing as well as he maybe did earlier in the year. So he might have something to gain by coming back. I think he's got a tough decision. I think right now he's maybe a 4th-round draft pick. And he might decide, let me work on my game for another year. Let me come back, and maybe I can get into the 2nd round.
Okay. Well, thanks for taking my call, Gary. Have a great rest
Adam.
of the show.
No problem. Thanks for being part of it. All right, guys, it's time for the segment of the show that I know so many of you love, and I always enjoy myself, and that's our counterpoint segment where Bruce Warner, and I'll say that this segment is presented tonight by the law office of Bruce Warner, comes on the show often with a former player. And tonight, Bruce and I are going to be joined by a Canes legend, Mr. Leon Cyrsi. He was an All-American in Miami, won 2 national championships with the Canes in 1989 and 91, was a 1st-round draft pick by the Pittsburgh Steelers, played in the Super Bowl. Recently, I think I saw that he was selected as one of the top Jacksonville Jaguar players of all time. And Leon has recently released a book about his life in football and how he became the NFL's highest paid offensive lineman, and a series of choices and circumstances resulted in him going through some tough personal times. And the way it's described is he was left broke. A guy that went from being the highest paid offensive lineman in the league to being broke. And we've seen this happen so many times through the years, and I know Leon's going to want to talk about that a little bit. And it's always been tough to see guys, because we get to know so many of these guys. Like, I've known Leon since he was 18 years old. So, to see them go through those kind of things, knowing how different it could have been if maybe, they were guided in a different direction, or, there's always different circumstances. But anyway, so his book is called 4th and Damn. It's the story of one man's incredible gridiron journey full of highs and lows. You can get it at Amazon.com and probably some bookstores too. I haven't scoped out all the different bookstores, but you can go out there and get it. And he's here tonight to talk about it. Bruce, Leon, welcome back to CaneSport Live. How you guys doing tonight?
Doing great, Gary. Doing great.
Yeah, I'm doing great, Gary. By the way, Gary, I won 3 national champions.
Yeah, 3 national.
Oh,
read the damn book, Gary.
Okay, I'm sorry. Wait a minute.
Yeah, 87. He was there.
You were here in 87 too?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay, my bad.
You gypped him out of a ring.
All right. I'm getting old. What can I tell you? My memory's not as good as it used to be.
It's all good,
But Leon, I will tell you this as well. The University of Miami gypped you out of the 87 one too, because I'm sitting here. I just looked you up in the media guide, and they don't have you listed in 87 either. so they're guilty as well.
Well, I'll be talking to Manny soon, man, because I need to get credit for that 87. I was a freshman in 87.
Did you get a ring?
Yeah, I got a ring.
Well, that's all you need is the ring. The hell was in the book.
Okay.
So 3 rings. Where are they right this minute?
Oh, well, my auntie has them, actually. I gave them to my auntie. She's got them in a safety deposit box, to be quite honest with you.
So you don't ever wear them?
I don't ever wear them. No, I mean, I use them as showpieces every now and then if I show up for a signing or something like that, but I rarely wear them.
Yeah, well, he wore them a couple of years ago, and him and Darren and Claude, they came to my temple and volunteered to take pictures with people, and they were selling the autographs for like $10 a pop. That was really nice of those guys, and of course it cost me like $400 to take him to Christine Lee's after that, but that's beside the point. But he's just a great guy, and I know Leon since back in the day too, and even despite the highs and lows, he really hasn't changed. He's just a good-natured person. I mean, one of the parts in his book, I'm not going to tell everything, obviously, but I think it's true. Leon, you said you went to the Pro Bowl and brought your friends, your family, and everybody else, and it cost you, what, $30,000 or $40,000 just for a weekend to Pro Bowl? Is that right?
Well, I mean, I didn't really have to come out of pocket for the Pro Bowl because initially when you go to the Pro Bowl, they give you $20,000 on the books once you get there. But, it was the first time in Hawaii. I'd never been to Hawaii before. It was my first Pro Bowl. So I invited a lot of my family members to come. I put them at the hotel, flew them to the Honolulu. And we had a great time and, took them out to dinner, made sure they had cars, made sure they had tickets. And I referenced this in the book. I remember the first time I took them out to dinner after I had catered everything. And I took them out to this really 5-star dinner, and I bought all the food and the drinks and everything like that. And I was sitting there with my wife asking her, hey, look, I'm spending all this money on these people. I'm going to see if anybody comes in pocket and bothers to pay for the tip, because I had already gotten the bill. The bill was like $3,000. It was like 10 people. I had my mama there. Of course, I wasn't going to let my mama pay for it, but everybody else was just, you know, family members, cousins, aunties, and all that kind of stuff. Bill came up to about $3,000, and I saw nobody go in their pocket to offer a tip, you know, for the dinner. And I told my wife at the time that I was done with them. I said I was not going to take care of them for the rest of the Pro Bowl. They was on their own. But this story is typical. It's nothing new. I mean, if you ask a lot of athletes figure that if they make a bunch of money, that they're obligated to take care of everybody. And I was one of those guys. I was generous. I was good-hearted, and I felt like because I made a lot of money, that everybody else was supposed to benefit from it, especially family. And that's, you know, one of the things that I speak about in my book about a lot of the unnecessary expenditures that athletes spend money on when it comes to their families and so-called friends. So the book is a life lesson. I mean, I did the book not only because I thought the book was going to be very therapeutic for me, but I also wanted the book to be a life lesson for athletes, not only high school athletes, college athletes, but even players that are in the NFL right now, that you can make a series of bad choices financially and with people that you deal with that might cost you in the end. So, I mean, I'm not in any ways embarrassed about what happened in the book. It was my life. I learned from it. I'm better off now because of it. And the book is doing well right now. Right now it's number 2 on Amazon's hot new releases. So it's a lot of people that are jumping on board, and they're buying the book and enjoying the experience, and I'm getting great reviews as of late.
Yeah, well, I read it, and I read it in a day because it's an easy read. And from his childhood, when his mother, I don't know if she cursed out the coach, but she got in the coach's face. Leon got cut when he was, 10, 11, 12, because he was too big and too heavy, so they cut him. But so his mother dragged him in the car and went over there, and I guess did she scream and yell at the coach, or because you were embarrassed?
Well, yeah, I don't want to tell the whole book, Barry, because Bruce, because I want some people to go by.
I'm not telling the whole book.
But my parent, what to the extent what my mom did was, you know, I was too heavy. I was too young to play with the little ones, and then I was too heavy to play with them as well. So I was in a conundrum. So basically, the Pop Warner coach, you know, pulled me off the ground. Told me to get my fat ass off his field. So I went home walking by myself, and I went crying. And my mom, of course, her being a lioness, someone attacked their cub, she went after him. And she basically told the guy that he was going to regret not coaching me, and told him that, hey, one day you're gonna turn the TV and you're gonna see Leon Cyrsi's name, and you're gonna be the coach who didn't coach him. So that was just another, you know, I've got a bunch of like little segments of my life when I was growing up to help mold me into the man that I was.
Yeah, well, your expenditures were incredible.
Yeah, go ahead, Gary.
Cars. What was the purple car you got? A what? A purple what?
It was actually a purple Benz that I bought my first year when I was Jacksonville. My first day of the training camp, I had a purple Benz, and I rode into training camp the first day when I was in Jacksonville playing Purple Rain because I was a big Prince fan. I'm sure Tom Coughlin got a nice kick out of that. Tom Coughlin got a nice little kick out of that, seeing me do that.
Too bad Hard Knocks wasn't there, man. That would have been the perfect Hard Knocks scene. That would have been great for that show.
Oh, absolutely.
So, like, you guys grow up, and, you know, so many kids like Leon Cyrsi grow up, and they dream of becoming professional football players. And as much as that, they dream about making money and being able to take care of their mothers. And, you know, you hear it, you know, dozens of times a year, you know, no matter what team you cover, whether it's Miami Hurricanes or whatever. But, you know, as a writer, I've heard that a million times. You know, I want to take care of my mom. You know, my mom sacrificed for me when I was little. You know, she worked 2 jobs so she could pay for, you know, my football leagues and going to football camps and things like that. So so many kids grow up thinking about wanting to make it big so that they can take care of the people around them, which is, kind of what you just referred to. But when you get there, Leon, talk a little bit about how unprepared you really are to be able to actually execute that and handle it and know that you need to have limitations on it.
Well, I mean, for the most part, most athletes that go from college to the pros are ill-equipped financially, or the financial literacy of what to do with their money once they get it. And then most of the times they run into financial advisors and agents who are sharks, so to say, who don't keep you abreast of what you should be saving, what you should be investing. I mean, I'm under the impression that it should start in high school. It should start in high school. You should teach these kids about the financial literacy, understanding about savings and stocks and bonds and what to invest in and all that kind of stuff. But, you're never taught about any of that stuff while you're in high school or even when you're in college. So when you get to the NFL level and you're making all this money, you're entrusting your welfare into the hands of people who may not have your best intentions at hand. And I found myself in that situation where I was in a cesspool of financial advisors and accountants and agents who were looking out for themselves. And when you're playing ball, that's all you're really focused on. You're focused on playing ball, playing for your team, making the money, buying this, buying that, and no one ever tells you that it's ever going to end. And you feed your ego. I mean, we all have egos when you play ball. You have to have an ego. You have to think that you're the best. And you compete not only on the field, but you compete off the field. A lot of people don't understand that. A lot of athletes, not only do they compete on the field, they have these huge egos on the field, which you need in order to be at the top of your craft. But a lot of these guys, when they get off the field, they're competing on who's got the best car, the best clothes, the best jewelry, who's got the big house, who's got the fine woman, who spend the most money in the club, who spend the most money in the strip clubs. So there's a competition not only on the field but off the field that a lot of these guys, when they don't realize it until they're too late, it's too late that they've spent up all their money. And I was very honest in the book about my pitfalls and my vices that I had while I was playing in the NFL. And the one thing about playing in the NFL, there are all these vices that you incur while you're playing, whether it be womanizing, spending money, spending on luxuries. There's no rehab center once you retire. There's no place where you can go and rehab and kind of get over these vices that you've had since you were playing football. And then once your career is over, you're left in a tailspin having to deal with all these addictions and vices that you incur while you play football. And that was another thing that I assessed in the book about how difficult it was for me once my career was over, because all the people that I so-called entrusted while I was playing, kind of cast me away. I felt like Tom Cruise in that movie talking to Wilson, because I absolutely had no one who came to my aid once my career was over. And I was very honest about it. I was very honest about, how I had to deal with it. And I just wanted to make sure a lot of athletes that befriend, whether it be financial advisors, whether it be agents or friends or whatever, that mass majority of the time, once your career is over and there's no money left, they have no more use for you and you're cast away. And that was done to me.
Care to mention any names?
No, I don't care to mention any name. I'm sure if you read the book, you'll.
Yeah, we all know who they are anyhow, so
yeah,
we got
you know who they are.
I know who they are. Read the book, we all do.
When you read the book, it'll be stated nice and clear who it was. But I don't have any ill will towards those people. It just taught me a lesson. Because I always tell people I don't never lose in life. I learned a valuable lesson about people and keeping your circle small. And believing in yourself. And listen, I couldn't be to where I am today right now, enjoying my life to the fullest, if I didn't believe that I could somehow succumb this and make a better life for myself. So I'm excited about the book. Everybody that's read the book has been entertained. They love the story. They love to read. I'm just going to keep doing whatever I need to do to continue to promote it, because I want it in the hands of all athletes, because it's not only a telltale story for athletes, but it's just a telltale story of just persevering and never giving up. And I wouldn't be here to this day if I had given up.
That's for sure. And I could tell you, Gary, he does not sugarcoat anything. He takes full responsibility. And as you're reading the book and he's telling us what he's doing, spending money in strip clubs, and I think one time he rented out an entire top floor of some place for whatever they were doing. They had girls all the time. He didn't sugarcoat anything. He's narrating it, and he's saying, I knew I screwed up. I shouldn't do this. I shouldn't do that. But he was doing it anyhow. So it's an amazing book, because I know Leon pretty well, but I didn't know a lot of these things. So if anybody wants to read this book, I would definitely do it. It's a great book. In Amazon, you can get it like the next day, or if you have Kindle, you'll get it in 5 seconds, because that's how I got it, on the Kindle.
Yeah, well, I got a kick out of Leon's Pro Bowl story because, I see that's something I see a lot also. And I'd be curious to get your opinion, Leon, on this. Like, you have money, and everybody knows you have money. And, like, people that I have found that people that have money like to spend money. And, it's important to them. They're not just looking to take their money and just throw it in the bank, once they get to a certain point. So, it's kind of like a catch-22 because, you're there, you got 10 people at the Pro Bowl. You're expected, it's expected of you to entertain everybody. And it's expected of you to pick up that dinner tab. On the one hand, you're expecting, and tell me if I'm wrong on this, you're expecting yourself to pick up that dinner tab. Right? I mean, you're that's.
Yeah, but Gary, he invited them there. So what? I
understand.
Expect they're going to pay for.
No, I understand, but my point is, it's a catch-22 because the guy with the money, everybody expects him to pick up the tab. He expects himself to pick up the tab, but at the end of the day, it's total BS. And yeah, they should have paid the damn tip, and it doesn't matter how much money Leon had, and. But it never works out that way. Yeah. And the point I'm making, Leon, is it's not easy having money. Everybody thinks it's so great having all this money, but there's downsides to it as well.
Well, you're absolutely right, Gary. I mean, because if you do it long enough, then you feel obligated because the check sat on the table for a good 10 minutes and nobody moved. So that already told me that they weren't coming out of pocket. They figured that I already paid for the trip and the room and the limos and the tickets. So there was no need for them to come out of pocket. And I had done it before, so they just figured that I was going to do it again. But I just sat there to see if anybody was going to at least take notice that I was paying the bill and was anybody going to offer at least a tip. I mean, no one put out a 20, 40, 100, nothing, even a dollar bill. So, I mean, because I had done it so many times before, it was almost like the money was almost a blessing and a curse at the same time because I had done it so many times before, people just figured that Leon was going to take care of it anyway. So me sitting there waiting for them to bring the tip was probably nonsense because I had never done that before. But I just figured that it was my first time at the Pro Bowl. I invited all the family. That at least they could have carried the tip amongst 10 people. If you had given me $20 a piece, that would have been $200, and I would have carried the rest. But no, because I had done it before. It's my blessing and my curse. They didn't feel obligated to pull out anything out of their wallets.
How much money does Kelvin Harris owe you? Just kidding.
Who?
Kelvin, he doesn't pay for a thing.
Man, Calvin pays for nothing.
He pays for nothing. Nothing. I don't even know if he's got pockets to pull money out of. So the one thing I wish he would have put in the book is, we're Canes fans. He's got 10 million Miami Hurricane stories. There's some in there, but there's a lot more he could have said. He could have said a lot more, right, Leon?
Well, yeah, hell, I could have. Listen, my next book can just be an all Canes book. There's
of course,
a lot
it could
of stories
be.
in Miami. I couldn't put in the book. I mean, what my author actually told me to do is, which I'm going to start doing tomorrow, I left a lot of stories that it just didn't fit right into the book. I mean, I've got stories. I got Cane stories. I got some stories, BYU stories, Texas stories. I got Sugar Bowl stories. They just, although they're great stories, but they just didn't fit into the parameters of the book. But my author told me what I need to do is, starting tomorrow, I'm gonna start telling those stories via video that didn't make the book. So I got to.
Well, you're a bestseller now. Why don't you write another book? You'll have another bestseller. Right?
I'm not a bestseller yet. Right now, no, you don't get a bestseller until you hit number one. I'm number two. So if I get to number one, then maybe. But no, I'm gonna start telling stories that didn't make the book to get people to gain a little bit more interest in the actual book. Because I left stories out about my time when I played Reggie White, Lawrence Taylor, my donut story with the Steelers, the BYU story, at the Sugar Bowl after the game stories, in the hotel before the Texas.
Oh, that was bad. I heard all about that.
Oh well, yeah, I've got all those kind of stories that I left out. I actually, what's funny is Dave Campo he comes on our radio show every now and then, and he's got the book, and it's a funny story I told in there about the 16-110s that he laughed about. We came on the show last week, said he wrote the book. He read the book, and I told him how horrifying those 16-110s were when Jimmy Johnson was there, and he verified everything I talked about in the book about those 16-110s. So that was pretty cool. So I got even more stories about in the weight room, 16-110s, in the locker room, block parties with Uncle Luke. I left out the book. So those kind of stories that I'm going to start relaying via video, just to give the fans some of the stories that actually didn't make the cut.
Yeah, well, Dwayne Johnson made the cut.
Oh well, The Rock made the cut, and The Rock gave me a nice little promo for the back of my book that I reached out on the back of the book. I referenced the one time me and Rock was talking on Twitter, and I made reference to him on the freshman orientation where he looked like a mechanic, didn't look like a real student. He looked like a grown ass man, and then he referenced about me punch blocking him, knocking one of his lungs out. And he said I was one of the toughest, he said I was one of the toughest, meanest offensive linemen he ever went up against. So of course, Rock being the superstar that he is now, had to use that quote, for the back of my book.
Good, awesome. Yeah, that's awesome.
Leon, how many
Because he really
how many
didn't play
times?
that much. Dewey.
Hey, Leon, how many times has somebody picked up the tab for you in your life? Or in your adult life?
Me.
Well, most of the time the people picked up my tab when I was being recruited by agents after my senior year. Some were legit meals and some were not so legit meals. So that's the only time. But all the other times, I've had to carry the tab, for my 11-year career when I was playing.
Leon, have you watched the Canes at all this year?
I have watched the Canes. I have watched them every chance I get. When I'm not with the Jaguars or anything like that. But when I do get time to watch them, I do watch them.
And thoughts?
I think that they're playing well. I don't think they have a signature win right now. I think they're doing something different from what they did last year. They're actually beating the teams they're supposed to beat. The last game they played against Virginia Tech wasn't really impressive to me, but I realized that they had like 13 players that didn't play because of injuries or COVID. So in order for them coming out with that win against Virginia Tech was impressive. I was a little concerned that them giving up 41 points to North Carolina State. I think they're beating the teams they're supposed to be. I was very impressed with the way they smashed Florida State. That's always pleasant to see. But the Clemson game was disheartening to see them, get dismantled by Clemson. But that just lets you know that Clemson is on tier 1, and the Hurricanes are on tier 2.
Yep.
They've got a couple of years before I think they're going to be able to match Clemson toe for toe. But I think Manny's moving in the right direction. Because it was very embarrassing last year to see them lose to Duke, FIU, and La Tech. So I think this year now they're beating the teams they're supposed to beat, and if they handle business like they should win out. Now North Carolina might give them a little test towards the end, But I think the Wake Forests and the Dukes of the world, they should win those games easily.
Yeah, and I agree with Gary. I've been saying all year that De'Aaron King is the difference maker. He's the difference between 7-1 and 4-4. He really has come here and made a significant difference. I don't know how much better or worse they are, but he clearly has made a difference at the quarterback position. He's the leader.
Yeah, he's the leader. Absolutely. I mean, this team would not be in the position it's in right now if it wasn't for Derek King. The only problem I have with that is because, I'm a stickler on the offensive line. The offensive line spends too much time watching Derek King run and not blocking. I mean, our running game should be a lot better than what it is. I think we do too much standing around and looking, waiting for Derek King to make a play with his feet or throwing the ball. I would just like to see our offensive line, and I even had this conversation with Brett Romberg, and we agreed the offensive line spends too much time standing around waiting for Derek to make a play instead of them being playmakers themselves. As dynamic.
They can't be standing around, Leon. They can't be standing around when they're running the ball. There's no time to stand around. They got to knock somebody in their ass. They don't seem to do it.
That's what I'm saying. They're overemphasizing Derek King's athletic ability, and the offensive line isn't doing enough in the run game to keep the run game going. I would like to see them put a little bit more effort into our run game so we're not so one-dimensional or depending on Derek King to make a play with his feet. But overall, Derek King I hope he comes back another year. I really does. I really hope he does come back to Miami for another year because we could definitely utilize this talent next year for 2021.
Well, the ultimate final exam would come if they win this weekend, and I don't know what would happen if they didn't beat North Carolina, but right now it looks like they're headed towards the Orange Bowl, Leon, and a game against the loser of the SEC championship game, probably Alabama or Florida. So that would be the ultimate final exam for this year, I think, and we'd give them yet another measuring stick to see where they are. And to me, ultimately, what it's going to come down to is how they can build on 2020. We all agree, definite forward steps this year, but the last time they had forward steps was 2017, and they were not able to build on it. The next 2 years were not very good at all. So the key will be how they're able to build on it. But we'll see what happens. Leon, thank you so much for joining us. Love when you come on the show. I know you're doing well in the things you're doing up in Jacksonville and all that. So keep that up, and we'll do it again soon. And I hope you sell 1 million books.
So to say.
I hope so too, and thank you. I appreciate you allowing me to come on your show.
No sweat. No, thank you for allowing us to have you on the show. And other than Amazon, where can people buy the book?
Well, right now, it's Fourth Down the Dam, a Lyman story. It's the autobiography of Leon Cyrsi. Right now, it's on Amazon. But starting, we've already had a book launch here in Jacksonville where we sold out. We had over 75 people sign autograph. We had sponsors and everything. A radio show was done there as well. So we're going to be on tour starting 2021. We're going to make stops in Orlando. We're going to make stops in Miami, Atlanta, and Pittsburgh.
But if people want to buy it online, they just go to Amazon.
Yeah, if they want to buy the book online, they can go to Amazon. You can go to Amazon. You can purchase it on Kindle, or you can purchase it on paperback. And once we get closer to the Christmas time, they'll be available on hardback as well.
All righty. Well, thanks, Leon. Thank you for coming on the show. And everybody, grab that book. Tons of great stories in there. And Leon's had a very interesting life. So, Leon, until next time, thanks again.
All right. Appreciate you. Thank you.
All right, Leon. I'll talk to you soon, buddy.
All right, Bruce.
All right, okay. I'll talk to you.
All right, and that segment was presented by the Law Office of Bruce E. Warner, practicing family law in Broward, Dade, and Palm Beach counties for 37 years. Bruce handles divorce and paternity cases, as well as modifications of timesharing and child support and alimony. If you have a family law need in South Florida, Bruce can be as tough and aggressive or as kind and caring as necessary. So if you have family law needs, email talkingdivorce@aol.com. That's talkingdivorce@aol.com. And hope you don't need them, but if you do, sure, Bruce will take care of you. All right, let's get back to your calls now. The number is 563-999-3550, 563-999-3550. You hit the 1 on your keypad if you want to come on the show, and let's head to the 786. You're live on CaneSport Live. How you doing tonight?
Gary, how are you?
Hey, what's up, everything? How you doing this week?
Hey, another great show, man.
We're trying, man. We're trying.
Back on CaneSport Live, man.
Yeah, we're trying to pull it together for you guys.
Well, I really enjoyed having Leon as a guest tonight. He's so insightful, and just for him to be able to share some of these stories and the pitfalls that a lot of these guys end up having to go through, and where life takes them based on a lack of direction. And I think one of the biggest things that he mentioned that should be a requirement in the state of Florida for sure is having one of those type of life skill classes and how you utilize math on a day-to-day basis and all those life skills that are taken for granted. And for the kids who are lucky enough to have involved parents that support them, unfortunately those parents do everything for them too. So we need more of that involvement at the high school level, I think, in terms of getting these kids ready for the real world. And again, he made some great points tonight.
Yeah, I'm not sure if they're mature enough at the high school level, but certainly when they're at that point in college, and I don't think this gets done anywhere near well enough, but like to me, the University of Miami and every program around the country should have a one-on-one mentor for these kids to help them lay out a plan for their future, and just so they understand that, okay, who do you need to take care of? Okay, let's figure out how you're going to do this and how you're going to do this. You're not just going to be thrown out into this cesspool without any help and not having any idea, what to do. And I just don't think that gets done enough. And these kids end up getting exploited by so many people.
Yeah, and what's worse, Gary, is when they get to the NFL, if they're lucky enough to get to the NFL, and the symposium is open to all players. It doesn't matter whether you're a fifth-round draft choice, a first round, and all those resources are there, but so many of them don't even pay attention to that part of the process because all they're focused on is what Leon mentioned, which is just playing and getting the bigger, better contract. And they forget that the most important thing is for them to be able to manage that money and to come up with a game plan and who you should trust and who you can't trust. And, again, just some great information. But I wanted to talk a little bit about our group right now. In the past 2 days, I've heard you guys on the press conferences that the coordinators have had, what Manny had, and you guys have had some great questions. And I'm just wondering, how healthy are these kids? And we don't know how many kids in total, basically had the virus, let alone which ones had to be in quarantine. But of the ones who had the virus, Gary, how many do you think are really actively going to be able to, contribute and play at a certain level of our expectations or their expectations? I mean, what do you think you're looking at, to be honest?
It's so hard to predict that. I mean, it really is. I mean, some of the, I know a lot of stories now of kids who have had COVID and things, and young people that have COVID and things like that. And some of them bounce back, and it's like they never had it. Some of them never had a clue they had it. Didn't even have a symptom or anything. And then there's others that, for weeks they don't feel right. So, it's hard to say. I mean, these are kids that are in supreme athletic condition. I would be surprised if we're watching the game on Saturday and we're saying, oh, man, he had COVID. He doesn't look like the same player because of that. I would be surprised.
Well, and Coach Diaz mentioned yesterday, I believe, that they were able to come in midweek. Last week they brought in a lot of the kids that were cleared and eligible to come back and work in a socially distanced manner and all those things. But you also heard him say how big of a challenge they had in terms of setting up their practices for this week, based with the COVID requirements that are at hand here, but also ensuring that the kids that have the bounce back and that are eligible don't get sick again. So you talk about a huge task at hand for the staff, and to get ready for an opponent that you found out Sunday night you were going to play, I think it's going to be a real testament to the quality of teaching that we have from this group of guys, this staff, and that'll come on Saturday. Because regardless of the talent, Duke has some decent talent on defense. They've got some decent talent on offense. They're not a horrible team. The record isn't very good, but just as we are in the top 10, are we really a top 10, or is it based on we've been lucky getting breaks here and there? There's a lot of things.
I don't think it matters. Does it really matter? I mean, you could debate that for sure, but does it really matter? I mean, I see very few teams out there that look to me anywhere near as good as what you would have thought they would have been coming into the season. I mean, there's a couple obviously, but look at what Clemson's gone through. When they had to go play Notre Dame, I mean, they weren't close to 100%. I mean, I don't know everything. I think everyone's just trying to survive the year, and I think whether someone's ranked 10th or 15th or whatever, does it really matter? I mean, they're just trying to get through the season. I wouldn't overemphasize it, and I wouldn't underemphasize it. I would just not really pay a whole lot of attention to rankings this year. I don't think it really matters.
And with that in mind, Gary, that's why I'm not going to sit here and say, well, we're going to win on Saturday. That's a done deal. Because nothing's a done deal with this group. You don't know how things are going to transpire this week. You don't know how ready we are.
Other than the Duke's been really bad. They've been really bad.
They have been. They definitely have been. And they don't have a lot of talent. But when you look at how we match up with them, their strength are the two defensive ends. Our weaknesses pretty much it's been our pass protection. They've got decent linebackers who cover. They're active. They're aggressive. They're attacking. Their corners will be out on an island. I mean, they're gonna give us a game. It's not like they're just gonna go ahead and say, okay, come take the W.
We'll see. I'm not as convinced as you are. I'm not as convinced as you are.
I know, back of the mind, a lot of these players, they're not forgetting that Instagram video that hit last year at the end of the game, in their locker room. It was beyond disrespectful, some of the stuff that was said. But then again, to the victor go the spoils. So I hope if we are able to go out there and execute a high level and pretty much dominate them, don't take your foot off the pedal. This is one of those games that if you are lucky enough that things are going to work, basically we're doing our job. The kids are doing their job. That if you got them in a bad spot, just keep them there and just run up the score as best as you can and send a little message to Duke and everybody out there to be careful. If you go ahead and disrespect the brand to a certain extent, especially what was said last year, Gary, I'd like to see our guys take that. Hopefully they took that in and it's in the back of their mind. It's a personal vendetta here, because I'd like to go ahead and go up there and just annihilate them and put them in their place. I really would like that to happen. But again, with this season, we have no idea what the hell's going to happen. We do have a lot more talent, and you look at the breaks. Your opening song here, with all the breaks that we've had, this is the best opportunity we're going to have to go to a New Year's Day Bowl. So we've got to be able to win this game on Saturday, and then find a way to compete against I think the second best quarterback in the entire conference. Howell's the best quarterback other than Lawrence in the conference, and I love De'Aaron King, but Howell can really sling it, Gary. That kid is tough.
He's good.
Run it.
I personally think De'Aaron King's had a better year than him this year, though. But we'll see what happens when we play.
On the recruiting front, I don't know if it was Adam or I forget who it was. Somebody mentioned all these different kids that have popped up. If you look at the number of decommitments since last week, I think there's 19 of them throughout the country. And if you look at the number of scholarships and commitments that we have right now, I'm almost thinking, and you brought this up a while back, addition by subtraction. I'm almost hoping that we get one or two of these kids to back off their pledge and they don't sign early. because I still think that the best talent that's going to be available, immediately impactful, that'll be able to take the place of some of our guys that will be moving on, whether it's to the league or to another school, because we are going to lose a couple kids that are starters. I think we'll lose one or two to other schools, especially on the offensive line. We might see a guy or two leave. But I think it's critical for us to have as many spots as we can, at least 4 or 5 spots for the portal. Kids throughout the country where things have not worked out well for them for whatever reasons beside COVID, and they want to get a good year of tape. I mean, you look at what kids have been able to come here and do in a year, Jalen Phillips, Quincy Rochet, Adrian Colbert years ago. I mean, I think this is a great place. It's a proven opportunity that you can come in if you're at a certain level, you can get some great tape and get a chance to play on Sundays and get drafted. So I'm really hoping that I wouldn't mind seeing another kid or two, back off their pledge, to be quite frankly. And to be honest with you, there's one that's been playing games with us since he committed, decommitted and committed and decommitted. And, he's always on Twitter. It's almost like he's trolling us. And I know he's got a special relationship with Greg Schiano up at Rutgers. And now he's also trying to get his teammate that's also committed to us saying, hey, listen, look at everybody that's in front of you. We need to keep our options open. Maybe we should wait until the spring side, until the February signing period. So I wouldn't be surprised if that comes about, Gary.
You talking about Savion?
Talking about Thad and Alan Hay.
Oh, okay, those two.
Thad Franklin. Yeah, I think Savion has come to the conclusion that Florida's not going to offer him. And I think he really wanted to go to Florida. And Florida's not going to offer him. He doesn't fit what they like from a defensive tackle. He's almost a clone of Slayton, and that's Slayton's been a guy that's been there. Isn't an impactful guy. Doesn't impact the game at all. It's almost like a clone of him. So I think they want to move on from that type of defensive tackle. And he's got short arms, Gary. I mean, that's one thing he does have. Kind of reminds me of the kid from Northwestern that ended up going to Pitt. I don't consider him critical to this class at all, personally. But no, I mean, so I wouldn't mind if those two or three kids, if we lose 2 of those kids, I wouldn't mind those 2 spots going to a transfer kid or maybe one. And the kid that, to me, that's come on like gangbusters, and I wish you could explain this to me, because I've seen this kid play for 2 years now. One, he was at Heritage, and now he's at St. Thomas. How does Dallas Turner compare to the Peyton kid at Northwestern in your eyes, Gary? I know that a lot of people think that he is he's like a system type player, and I think that that's what they like about him at Alabama. He's never really been in the picture here, so I'm not going to tell you that I've studied him in depth. I have not, but that is what I heard, that they consider him at Alabama just like a really good fit for what they like to do up there. The Peyton kid at Northwestern's kind of come out of nowhere, man. I think he's caught Miami's attention, and they're going to have to make a decision on him. The thing that surprises me really is that the NCAA has not given clarity to numbers. And, I think a lot of these schools right now, including Miami, are kind of like up in the air a little bit on what the numbers are going to be like, what their options are going to be, how much they want to increase the budget to accommodate extra players beyond the 85 limit, how much they want to go into the transfer portal, what other transfers might become available. There's just so many moving targets right now. So, it's hard for me to explain why that's
say what will happen.
I can explain why that's the case, Gary. I can give you the complete answer. The reason it's like everything else in this world, it's about money. And at this stage, the golden goose has always been football, which pays for everything, and it pays for football as well. But they're trying to figure out the NCAAs, along with the top ADs, the top conferences in the country. They're trying to figure out, well, how much can we make? Because we're in a hole as it is. So they need to figure out where they're going to be financially before they can make those decisions.
Yeah, and football players are expensive. I mean, when you talk about, paying for scholarships, books, housing, the stipends they get, the expenses when school's not in session, the medical costs of when a kid gets injured. I mean, there's a whole lineup of expenses, and it's not cheap to you say, oh, it'll be great, I can go from 85 to 100 or whatever. I mean, those 15 football players are going to cost the school a few $1 million. So it's not so easy. It's not so clear cut.
This is the problem the ADs are having, that council's having. The NC2A has a humongous contingency fund, Gary. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to figure out, okay, after everything's done with football, we have a certain idea what we're going to be able to make from basketball. Based on what we lost last year from basketball, the contingency fund that the NC2A has, which is pretty much their lifeline, okay, which is in the billions of dollars, they got to figure out how to be able to help some of these conferences and some of these schools before they can make that type of decision. And if you know anything about the NC2A, they have no desire to surplus in any way what these conferences have been able to bring about in terms of generating revenue on their own. So they don't want to get involved, but they're having them wait to be able to at least see how the dust settles and how things settles and who can pay for what, because there can't be a tremendous advantage in being as there is now anyway, with an SEC school, as a Big 12 school, as a Big 10 school. So they're trying to let things settle down first. And honestly, that's why the Big 10 was so pissed off from the very beginning, all the coaches were, because they knew the later you started to play, the less of a chance you're going to have to finish the season. Better to get all your money up front, at least from the television revenue, and that's not coming about. So that's been a big issue, Gary. But, again, that's why we don't have an idea. And that's why all these coaches are frustrated. And guess what? The ones who are really getting screwed here are the kids, like they always are, because other ones having to wait because they don't know. And hopefully they'll have an answer by January, but I'm not so sure that's the case, Gary.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you make some good points. So the whole thing is gonna be very interesting. You got anything else for us tonight?
The last thing I want to talk to you about: which coach on our staff right now do you see as potentially not being here next year?
You mean because they get a better job, or because they get let go by Manny?
Either or. As a matter of fact, how about each one? How about each case scenario?
I mean, obviously, getting a better job, you'd have to say Lashley would be the top candidate for that. I think Likens has had a very good year here. He might be on some people's radar. On the defensive side, I wouldn't be shocked if Manny wanted to stir it up a little bit, maybe make one change. What that change would be, I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if at some point Baker decided to break out, and kind of go somewhere where he could be his own guy. That wouldn't shock me if that ever happened. But we'll see. I know you're asking because you want me to say Rumpf. I mean, I don't think that. I mean, I think if Manny were going to do anything with Rumpf, it would have been after last year. I don't know. I don't know where Mike stands in terms of wanting to do something different or not. I haven't had that conversation with him. So, I don't know. But I think, if they finish this thing out, and end up 10-1 or something, like, why would you be looking to make changes? I think if the staff wanted to come back intact, that Manny would let it come back intact.
Well, I've always told you that with regards to Mike is one of the best teachers that we have. And people don't understand what he's making out of those kids given their limited athletic ability. I mean, let me tell you something. What he's done with those corners, they're not very good. The upperclassmen especially are not very good. And we've discussed that at length. But he's a great teacher, and he's able to get the most he can out of those corners, out of those kids, in my opinion. I know he can't recruit to save his life. That's not Mike. And, he told me that face to face about 3 years ago. We were at that dinner. And, he's a great guy. I wouldn't be shocked, though, now that his kids are a little bit older. I wouldn't be shocked if he steps away. and either goes back to the high school route as a head coach or, makes a decision, which he's had 2 chances already to go, and he hasn't gone to the NFL. I know the Niners wanted to hire him 2 years ago. I mean, he's a great teacher, and nobody can dispute that. Just ask around, and just ask anybody. He's just not a recruiter, but I would definitely love to I'd love to see Baker move on and get a better opportunity for himself. A lot of Division I jobs, lower tier Division I jobs are going to be open, and there's 2 in Louisiana that are probably going to be open as well. So I wouldn't mind seeing him move on. But one guy that I would hope that he's going to be available, he has a huge interest in coming back home, so to speak, and that's T-Rob. I really hope we get a chance to bring T-Rob in. And I know Will runs a different defense than Manny runs, but what he brings to the staff in terms of as a recruiter, this guy he's just a phenomenal. I think he's better than Corey Raymond, to be quite frank, but I would love to see T-Rob come on staff in some capacity. I just think he'd be a great fit in our community as well, to be honest with you.
All right, everything. Thank you as always for being part of the show, man. We'll talk to you. I'm sure we'll talk. I'm sure we'll talk again next week. All right, 563-999-3550, 563-999-3550. You hit the 1 on your keypad if you want to come on the show. Let's go to the 321. 321, you're live on CaneSport Live.
What is happening, Gary? Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Who's this?
Oh, this is Tony.
What's up, Tony?
How you doing, Gary?
Doing good. Doing good, man.
Not much,
Talk
man.
to us.
Still finishing up at work. Yeah, I haven't talked to you guys since before the Clemson game. Yeah. Well, I'm not gonna talk about the Clemson game. Yeah, man. I've been happy with us winning games. I believe Cyrsi touched on my point earlier is that we've been having people having problems with the season and how we've been winning games. But the same way we're winning these games, we were losing these games the same way last year. You know what I mean? Well,
you've probably heard me say this before, but like when you're life and death to win every game, you're going to win some, you're going to lose some. And right now, the cycle's on the right side of the fence for us.
First
what are you at a nightclub?
I work at a bar.
Oh, okay.
But we're closing down. Nobody's really here. I'm gonna step outside so it's not so noisy. But yeah, the first few games, the first game we won a close game. I'm like, all right, we won a close game. Second game, like, Then the third time they did, I was like, all right, now they're showing us that at the least we're learning how to win games consistently, and it brought up something to me because I was kind of on the seesaw because I love Manny Diaz. Don't get me wrong. I don't want to bring anything negative out of this, but at Miami, we're a big time school, and I've always felt like we need a big time coach. We're talking about how Manny can't recruit, and we're at Miami and we need to recruit to be Clemson. But I'm not going to go down that road. We have Manny. This is his second year. He's obviously made improvements. And, I'm just happy with seeing us win. Are we going to make a jump after this? That remains to be seen. But right now, I'm really just happy watching us win games we're supposed to win. We weren't doing that last year. We were losing games we were supposed to win. So,
yep. And I think they're handling COVID as well as anybody in the country, and I think that has a lot to do with it too.
Better than a lot of people, man. And I know you do interviews. In one of the interviews, they talked about how I guess the president of Miami has been through 3 pandemics. He specializes in infectious diseases. So it took a while for it to catch up to us, but when it did, it did. But I'm just I want to see what happens. I have I'm kind of like a Gemini on this situation. I have one side of me is like, Manny can either do it or he can't do it, but the other side of me is just going to watch and see what he does and what he has. But all the same, I'm still going to be a Cane. I just want to see us elevate to the next level, and if that has to be with what Manny does, then, I'll be happy with that. I'm not going to be biased. I want to see the Canes win regardless. But it's going to tell the North Carolina game. Because if you remember last year, the first two coaches we went against were both coaches that had Manny had coached underneath. You know what I mean? So, you know, and we battled both of those games. You can tell, you know, they didn't have a clear super advantage over him. But I just think when we play North Carolina this year, we're really going to see if Manny Diaz has made an improvement against coaches that already know a system that he's already coached underneath. So I want to see that this year for sure. But I'm not. All right, have a good night. All right, I'm not gonna, you know, sit on here all night. I just wanted to bring those points across and get on and finally say hey to you guys. Thanks for having the show, and you know, I appreciate hearing everybody that gets on here and speaks this Cane football. Hope y'all have a good night.
All right, Tone. Well, hit us up again next week.
For sure. Take it easy.
Yep. Sounds like he's got a fun job there at the club. All right, 563-999-3550. Hit 1 on your keypad if you want to come on the show. Now we are going to go down to the 845. You're live on CaneSport Live.
Yeah, Gary, how you doing?
Hey, what's up, Greg? How you doing, man?
I'm doing well. Okay, I want to start. I just saw that Notre Dame's game canceled for next week because they didn't want them to have to play when Clemson is off next week. So who
were they supposed to play? I didn't see that. Who were they supposed to play, Greg?
Wake Forest.
Yeah, you know, Wake Forest is having a lot of COVID problems, and I think that they're just happy to call it quits, to be honest with you. You know, I'm surprised Duke wanted to play this week. I really am. Like I think at this point, if you're not playing for something, I think you're going to continue to see teams just throw up their arms and say, you know what, we've done enough, we've had enough, we got 7 games in, 8 games. You know, let's not push the envelope, give the kids a break, and call it quits. Because you know, you got to remember these kids, they didn't train properly for this season. It's been, I talked about this earlier, like just incredibly stressful. You know, big strain, mental strain on them, and you know, a team like Wake Forest that now is not really playing for much is probably very happy to just be done. And that's why you're seeing a lot of the lower level bowls get canceled too.
All right, let me ask you a question. What if, I know this isn't going to happen, but what if Clemson lost this week? We'd be ahead of them. So would they tell us not to play North Carolina next week?
No, I think we would play North Carolina next week. And if we win that game, I think we would be in the championship game, yeah.
Okay, but why would we have to play if Notre Dame doesn't have to play this week? I don't understand. Whatever.
I think the league would be pushing Miami and North Carolina to play a little harder just because they owe TV a certain number of games, and that's a good TV game.
Okay. All right. Let me.
But I wouldn't be shocked if our Georgia Tech game didn't get played on the last week of the year. I mean, I don't see any point in that personally. We debated it on the message boards this week, but I just, you know, I don't see any point in going and playing Georgia Tech the last week of the year on December the 19th.
Okay, what happens if Clemson beats Notre Dame in the championship game? Okay. Yeah. And then Florida beats Alabama in the SEC. Florida would get into the Final Four. So would Clemson, so would Ohio State, and so would Alabama would probably go. So that means we could possibly play Notre Dame in the Orange Bowl.
I guess that could happen, but I don't think it will. I think the loser of the SEC will play in the Orange Bowl. I think Notre Dame would become an at-large for possibly like the Fiesta or something. But I also would not rule out Notre Dame getting in over Ohio State in a scenario like what you just mentioned.
So you don't think Alabama would go to the Final Four even if they lost to Florida?
I do think Alabama would go to the Final Four even if they lost. That's my point. So if you have Florida in the Final Four, Alabama in the Final Four, Clemson in the Final Four, and you know now you're picking between Notre Dame and Ohio State, I don't think that's so clear cut. A one-loss Notre Dame, that split with Clemson, the universally, considered number one team. I mean, let's take a look real quick. I want to see what Ohio State's got in store for themselves here over the next few weeks. I mean, what's so great about their resume? They've beaten nobody. The Maryland game just got canceled. Indiana was an artificial ranked team. Let's be honest. Now they had another game canceled. They've only played 4 games, and so Michigan State and Michigan, they're not going to have any. They're not going to have a resume. Even if they end up playing all 6 games, they're gonna have played 6 games and beaten nobody. Notre Dame will have beaten Clemson. I'll tell you right now, I think in that scenario that Notre Dame gets a one-loss. Notre Dame might just get in over an undefeated Ohio State.
There's no way to keeping the Big Ten out if Ohio State's undefeated. Not a chance.
We'll see. How do you put a team? What if they only play 5 games, Greg? What if they don't?
They're playing 7 games. They're going to play the Big Ten championship game.
Okay, good. All right, good point. But what if these next couple games get canceled? What if one of them they've already had cancellations 2 of the last 3 weeks? What if Michigan State or Michigan gets canceled?
I don't know what to tell you.
We'll see. I mean, so what? They're going to go play, I guess, Northwestern in the championship game, and that's going to be their signature victory. Like, I don't know, man. I don't know.
I don't know. All right.
Northwestern or Wisconsin? Who do you want to talk about?
Leonard Taylor. Leonard Taylor, I believe, is going to be the best D lineman we've recruited in decades. Put on his tape for the last game he played. Palmetto.
Yeah, I love Leonard Taylor. I think he's potentially elite.
Leonard Taylor is a beast.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's got more potential than the high school recruit probably we've had in a while. But we'll have to see how he develops.
Well, according to 247, he's the 3rd-ranked player in the country. That's a lot more accurate than Rivals 39. They had your buddy Sapp from St. Thomas ranked ahead of him. That's the biggest. They should be arrested for that. But anyway, one last point about your buddy Mario. It's not that easy without Justin Herbert, huh? He lost.
I don't think but I don't think the quarterback's the problem. The quarterback's not bad. He's a good young quarterback. He's not at Justin Herbert's level yet, but he's a good young quarterback. He's not costing them. He didn't cost them that game. The guy although that one interception was horrendous, the problem they have is they can't play defense. They lost 2 or 3 top defensive backs, so their secondary is horrendous. Their defensive line, for whatever reason, is underachieving. And they got caught. Listen, they got caught. Night game on the road against the rival that's not as bad as people think. And they had a chance to seal the game. All they had to get was a first down, and they didn't do it. Very similar to how they lost, I believe it was the Auburn game last year. So sometimes the close games, you don't get it done, and you lose.
By the way, everything's worried about Duke. They've given up 112 points in the last 2 games.
I know. I was trying to tell them that. Yeah.
What defensive players do they have? What is he talking about?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, they have a good defensive end, but yeah. No, they're going to be very overmatched. I agree with you.
All right, I'll let you go. We're going to win. We better win by 30. But anyway,
all right, Greg. Thanks for calling in as always.
Day.
You too. Let's go to the 678. You're live on CaneSport Live. 678, you with us?
I bet it won't make this long.
Going once, going twice. All right, man. I hope you win that argument. Let's go to the 706. You're live on CaneSport Live.
Hey, Gary, how you doing, man? Hope you had a good Thanksgiving. This is your boy, Sebastian.
Hey, what's up, Sebastian? How you doing this week?
I'm going pretty good, man. I'm sorry I got to the show a little bit late, so you probably just going to have to fill me in. So what's the story on the linebacker Terrence Lewis that just decommitted from Tennessee?
Yeah, we don't think he's coming to Miami. We think he's going to Texas A&M or Auburn right now.
I think so, too. So I guess the other question I wanted to ask you is, what are our chances with the St. Thomas inside linebacker, Jaden Hood, especially if Jim Harbaugh is not going to be at Michigan anymore?
Yeah, we've been thinking that kid was gonna flip to Miami for a while, but like he hasn't done it. So I don't know. I can't really say there to be honest with you. I mean, we think it's alive. I mean, it's something that's definitely not dead at this point, but not really sure.
I'm just wondering if we have a good season, maybe have an upset in a bowl game or whatnot. What are some of this local talent that may just want to take a second look at Miami, especially with COVID and everything going on? I was just thinking that he was probably one of the kids that may want to just take a look because, believe it or not, I actually think he's a better prospect and a better fit for Miami than that Terrence
Lewis.
From Terrence Lewis. And nothing against Terrence Lewis. I mean, I really don't know him, but I just think for the kind of culture Manny's trying to build,
I agree with you.
Hood is going to be the next person. I guess the other question I have is recruiting base too. Is what are our chances with the offensive tackle from Trinity Christian up in Jacksonville, Peyton Barber, and also that cornerback from Pensacola that decommitted from Tennessee? I just see them as high caliber character kids that I think will fit good in the program. Any chances with those guys?
Barber, I think that if Miami offers him, that he'll come. But, we just don't know yet if they're going to offer him or not.
Okay. And what about the cornerback that's up in Pensacola that did commit from Tennessee? Any shot with him?
You talking about Demarius McGee?
Yeah,
we've always considered him a long shot. We'll have to check back in with him and see if that's changed. But up to this point, we've considered him very much a long shot. But they have not stopped. They have not stopped recruiting him.
And I think they should keep swinging at it. I mean, I just for some reason I just feel that I'm not looking to bring in a recruiting class that's going to win us a national championship next year, but I mean, I just feel like the success on the field. I think Miami. I mean, I'm a realist now. I think we need about like 2 or 3 years of just like 8, 9, 10 win seasons or whatnot, and just building the right culture within the program will get us there. And I mean, I could easily see us being able to put some product on the field that can compete with Clemson in about 2 years. But it starts by getting, maybe a Hood from St. Thomas, that McGee kid from Tennessee, and up from Pensacola. You're gonna have to start.
Yeah, the problem is this. The problem is that Clemson is recruiting better than that. So, until we can start recruiting better than that, like, we sit here, we do, Greg was talking about Leonard Taylor, until we're putting 4 or 5 Leonard Taylors in a class and we're doing it more than once and taking what we're doing now, like this year we got Leonard Taylor and we got James Williams, who are considered like, difference making type of athletes. Clemson's getting a half dozen of those every year. And, that's the thing. Like, you're talking about 3-star kids that we're hoping to develop into good players, and you're trying to compare it to what Clemson's doing, and it's hard to do that on the face value of how they look coming out of high school.
Well, I guess the point I'm trying to make is, Clemson didn't get there overnight. And what I mean by that is, they hovered around the 8-9 win mark for a while. And then they had some successes in like bowl games and stuff like that. The upset of LSU and like the Chick-fil-A Bowl and stuff like that, and that's how you build the momentum to where you get to a point where you begin to win. Easy for Alabama to come down here. I mean, Nick Saban, I mean, he has almost 2 fingers where he can show championship rings on a dining room table to tell a kid to come to Alabama. And it's not going to be a hard sell for a kid to get there. But for Miami, I just think that there's just so much talent in South Florida that just I feel like a couple years of success. Like, I'll be satisfied to go the next 3 years winning 9 games, you know, and a couple of upsets and a couple of bowl wins or whatnot to really get us on a playing field to compete against Clemson. Because the reality of the fact is, and you probably agree with me, is South Carolina doesn't produce a lot of 5-stars. Not like the state of Florida does or South Florida does.
Yeah,
so,
I mean, I'm not trying to, dump rain on it. I'm just saying that this has got to keep getting better. Like this, what we're seeing right now has to be a building block, not the final destination. Yeah. Like, okay, we went 6-7 last year. We're doing much better this year. The program's taken a step forward on the field. Okay, recruiting. All right, we've been losing all the best players from Dade and Broward County. This year we got 2 of them. We got Leonard Taylor, we got James Williams, assuming nothing changes. That's a step forward. But like, these are building blocks. These aren't final destinations by any stretch of the imagination. I pointed out earlier when we were talking about this that there's 17 top 100 players just in the state of Florida, and James Williams and Leonard Taylor are the only 2 that Miami's getting. So, Alabama's coming into Florida and getting more top 100 players than Miami. So, like, that's what has to change. And like I said, going from 0 to 2 is forward progress. Just got to keep building on it.
Hey, this is my last comment, Gary, and you put me on hold. Okay. If you had your dream prospect this year that you would say, man, if Miami got him, they got a game changer. I mean, we got 2 of them, but they got a game changer to finalize his recruiting class.
You talking about what's reality? You talking about reality or pipe dream? I'd rather talk reality.
I want to talk reality. I mean,
okay. Well, reality is unquestionably Mason Smith. I mean, number 1 prospect in the country in with rivals, and it's LSU, and we think right now Miami's number 2. So if they could somehow steal that kid from LSU, which is asking a lot, that would be exactly what you're talking about.
Wow. See, I differ with you, but I'm glad you shared that with me. I just think that Garcia kid at quarterback.
That's not happening. I don't think it's happening. We have never felt like, and I know everyone's been chasing him on social media and the whole thing. We, as an entity covering recruiting, have never felt that was even close to really, really happening. Now, maybe we end up being wrong. Maybe he ends up in the signing class, and that would be great. But we have never seen any sign that he was just keeping in touch with Miami as a fallback plan in case the house blew up at USC.
So are you telling me that on signing day, if Miami inked that guy and we signed him out of the state of Louisiana, you would probably create a special show to talk about how we pulled that off?
Yes.
That would be a game for you.
It would be the biggest recruiting win at this program. I'm trying to think who's the last time we got a recruit like that. Was it Kyle Wright was, he didn't pan out, but he was like that type of prospect. Obviously, back in the day, Jesse Armstead was that type of prospect.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, no, this would be a massive win.
Okay, I appreciate it, man. Good show, man.
All right, man.
I hope we show up on Saturday, and I just want us to finish the season strong and just win the bowl game. I mean, that'll do it for me this year. That'll do it for me this year. Keep me on hold, man.
You got it. Thanks for being part of the show. Give us a call next week.
All right.
You got it. Let's go to the 917. You're live on CaneSport Live.
Hey, Gary. What's up, BK Hurricane?
Hey, what's up, BK? How you doing this week?
What's going on, man? I'm doing okay. Listen, you were absolutely right about that Ohio State thing. They're not getting in because of some archaic rule that the Big Ten has. I think they're eliminated from the championship game because there's some rule you have to play 7 games.
Oh, really?
I kind of heard Wisconsin and Ohio State are eliminated. So it's going to be a weird Big Ten championship game at Lucas Field. It's kind of crazy because
I just like if Notre Dame splits with Clemson,
Notre Dame is in.
I got to think they're in. Yeah, and Clemson's in.
There's no way they keep Notre Dame and Clemson out. So we'll potentially have two quote-unquote ACC teams in. And I don't think Florida's beating Alabama. So you might see Texas A&M slide in there if they win out.
Yeah, that's a possibility.
Did you see the rankings? How they put Iowa State in front of us
Yeah, I did see that. Well, you know what? I mean, if you look at our body of work, we've had a lot of close games against some not really great teams. So,
but they doesn't wait, do they have 2 losses?
Iowa State? No, I think they have 1 loss, don't they? Don't they have 1?
I think it's 2.
Let me try to take.
Well, they lost to Louisiana Lafayette, and they really didn't beat anybody else. Look at their conference.
Yeah, I'm pulling up. I'm trying to pull up the rankings right now.
Their conference is horrible. Granted, I just don't understand. Well,
you know what? You know what? You're right. Yeah, you're right. I hadn't really paid that much attention. They also put Georgia ahead of us, which
right.
I think if we played Georgia, we would probably be an underdog.
Right, but
the thing I like about the playoff selection committee rankings is that I think that they have good criteria. Like they look at a lot of different angles and a lot of different things, and they're trying not to be cookie cutter. And I think putting us at number 10 is fair. I don't know. I think you're making a legitimate point about Iowa State.
I'm not debating on if it's fair for us. I'm debating on does Ohio State deserve to be there? At number 9, I'm not saying we should be number 9, but it wouldn't have surprised me if they threw in an Oklahoma. But you know what I'm saying? Because Oklahoma is Oklahoma. Iowa State didn't beat anybody.
Yeah, and the fact that they lost to Louisiana Lafayette, even though they're ranked, I guess, number 25 right now, should have eliminated them just by itself. Yeah. Now
anything weird in 2020, I'm blaming it on COVID.
I mean, they beat Oklahoma, which was a good victory for them. Right. We do not have a victory like that.
Right, we don't have a signature victory.
No. But they're 1-2 in the top 25. That should not have been good enough to get them ranked 9th with 2 losses. I think you're making a great. I mean, I hadn't studied their body of work till right now. I think you're making a great point.
Yeah. But the Big Ten is pretty much eliminated from that college football playoff because of that archaic rule that the Big Ten has. Maybe if you could have seen Ohio State and Wisconsin in the championship game, then they probably could have said, Ohio State beat Wisconsin. Wisconsin's a good team. I mean, granted, the whole decimated by COVID and the quote-unquote bad loss to Michigan State, but still, that's a pretty good-looking team. And they're rounding up a bunch of 5-stars for some strange reason. I can't figure it out, but you know what I'm saying? A lot of good 5-stars from the Midwest are committing to Wisconsin as opposed to Michigan, which I can't wrap my head around that either.
But, I'm looking at these rankings for the first time right now. I mean, I knew we were ranked number 10, but I hadn't really looked at the rankings. There's some goofy stuff in here. You've got
that's what I'm saying.
You've got a 6-3 North Carolina team ranked 17th over a 3-0 USC team at 20th.
Exactly.
I mean, that's crazy. You got a 7-0 Marshall team ranked 21st. You've got teams with 3 losses ranked ahead over undefeated teams. Washington 3-0. Well, it's bizarre.
I'm blaming it all on COVID, Gary. Just like I said, this is a weird season for college football. I'm already looking forward to a bowl season. I know it's going to be a condensed bowl season because more and more of these bowls are going to close out. So you'll see the Power 6 and maybe some other big name bowls, but other than that, on top of that,
yep,
it's going to be a wrap.
Well, but teams don't want to practice for an extra month and go through all the COVID stuff to go play in Shreveport. Like they're not like nobody wants to do that, and the bowl games don't want to go through it, and so it's becoming easier to just cancel those games.
Yeah, it is. But real quick, like, are you going to have like a signing day show or no?
Yeah, we probably will. We'll take a look at that. I mean, I'm not sure if we'll do two different shows or whatever, because that'll be coming off North Carolina. So we'll see what happens. We'll figure it out. But yeah, we will definitely. What we'll probably do is I mean, we will probably combine them. I mean, we'll see. You know, we'll do it to Tuesday like always, with the signing days Wednesday. So, I mean, the class has been set for so long. There's really not a ton to talk about. We talked a little recruiting tonight, Matt and I, and just sort of touched base on it. I just don't think there's going to be, unless we're getting Mason Smith.
Yeah, but speaking of that though, that call, I'm not sure who it was right. Like everything, I'm not sure if it was him or not. But that Savion Collins kid, the Allen Hay kid, and the Thaddeus Franklin kid, I don't think they're going to be in this class. Yeah,
I don't know. Anything could happen with those kids.
They're playing too many games. They're playing too many games. I think Manny's going to, I think we're going to pull a rabbit out of our hat for somebody. I don't know who that somebody is, but we're going to pull somebody at the end like we did last year with Devontae, and, we'll figure it out the rest of the way. But those three kids have been playing games from the very beginning.
Yeah, they really have. I agree, especially Thaddeus Franklin.
Committing, decommitting. We should just be done with them at this point. We should just be done with them. I mean, we're pretty good at running back this year, because there's a good chance Robert Burns will come back for the 6th year. He hasn't started. He might as well stay on the team, and earn a good master's degree or something like that. So, if we don't sign a running back now, we could sign 2 next year. So, it wouldn't be too bad, because we have good quality young running backs on our team. So that losing Thaddeus Franklin is, to me, I could be wrong. What do I know? Is not that big of a deal.
Yeah, I agree.
But but keep me on though. Let me give somebody a chance to get on. But Gary, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure as always.
All right, man. Thank you as always for being part of the show, and give us a call next week.
All right, cool.
All right, 563-999-3550, 563-999-3550. You hit the number 1 on your keypad if you want to come on the show. If you do, we're getting pretty deep into it here, so now would be the time to jump in the queue. Let's go to the 504. You're live on CaneSport Live.
Hey, Gary, how you doing, man?
Doing great. Who's this?
Hey, man, it's Roland.
Hey, what's up, Roland? How you doing this week?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Just traveling a little bit. I said, let me just call. I forgot. I didn't realize I had the show. But that kid that decommitted from University of Tennessee. What's I don't even know anything about him. You think he's going to Miami or?
No, we don't. We think he's going to Texas A&M or Auburn.
Wow. Well, it seems like every time you have a show, man, it's like.
I mean, that's not a big deal, Roland. Roland, that's not a big deal. I mean, I personally think the kid's overrated. I mean, and they have never really been recruiting him that seriously. I know they do, but if the kid's going to be a potential problem, you're better off not recruiting him. But they have been, they've been trying to get him. I mean, they have. I mean, this is not a case where they've just totally blown it off. Like they have been trying to get him. So.
And what about quarterback? Do they have any big?
We don't know what's going to end up happening there. Maybe transfer portal again.
You made a great point. You was like, until Miami can bring that, that go-to quarterback, that big-time quarterback, it's just going to be the same old.
Yeah, I mean, we got lucky this year in getting King. Which is obviously good luck, but that's not going to happen every year. You're not going to get a quarterback of this caliber in the transfer portal.
No, I believe you're right. You're 100% right on that.
So we'll see. Maybe Tyler Van Dyke ends up being that dude, but we just don't know yet.
And where's he from? That kid, Van Dyke.
Connecticut.
Okay. All right. Well, just keep me on hold, man. You get a great show all the time. I listen in.
All right. Thanks, Roland. Thanks for being part of it. All right. Final call for calls, 563-999-3550. You hit the 1 on your keypad if you decide you want to come on the show. Let me address some of these questions that came in on the message boards at CaneSport.com. Why an 8 o'clock kickoff this week? That's purely for television, filling the TV slot, and that's why that was set at 8. Any intel on how Tyler Van Dyke is looking as a quarterback and how his development is going? Well, the talk has all been good. I mean, there's been no negatives. Nobody has said. I haven't heard anybody say one bad thing about Tyler Van Dyke. But since we have not been able to watch practice this year because of COVID, we don't personally know for sure. Like, typically, like I was able to watch Tate Martell and pretty much tell you guys that kid's never playing at Miami, no chance. I can't tell you anything one way or the other on Tyler Van Dyke because we haven't been able to be on the practice field this year because of COVID. So we got to take the word of the coaches and some other people that he's progressing well on the practice field. Would love to see him get in one of these games down the stretch, maybe Saturday against Duke, maybe against Georgia Tech. It would be great to see that kid, get a little game action, let him get a quarter and a half, and see what he can do. I mean, the Cozy Perrys had the chance to play a reasonable amount of football. So, we'll see if it plays out that way. But, beyond that, there's really not a ton that we could say right now on Van Dyke. Regarding support staff, is the Cane staff better or comparable to most teams? How does it compare to SEC schools? It's a very important aspect of the program. It is, and support staff is critical. The thing is, it's a very difficult thing to compare. So any answer that we would give you about support staff would be subjective. There's just no real way, to compare it. Like, how are we going to compare the recruiting coordinator here to the recruiting coordinator at Clemson? We don't really get to see the recruiting coordinator at Clemson do anything. We don't know, is it the coaching staff that's responsible for their recruiting? Is it the recruiting coordinator? Just a really hard conversation to have. I think the support staff is okay at Miami. I really like, if you want to, as an extension, go into the strength room. I like what we see David Feely do. I think the training staff at Miami is very good. There's still some things I would like to see done in the recruiting office. I think that some elements of it are really, really good. Some elements of it could be better. I think that's one area of the program that has really been underachieving for many, many years now, and I would love to see it addressed. I couldn't have been a bigger proponent at the end of last year about Alonzo Highsmith coming in and working on that area of the program. It didn't pan out. So, I don't, beyond that, I'm not really sure what more I can really say about support staff. It's not really the kind of thing that's very easy to evaluate and compare to other people. Let's see. Even if Lewis Headley returns for another year, are the coaches searching for his replacement? I think if they're searching for his replacement, it's going to be in the next recruiting class, not this one. I think Headley has pretty much made it clear to the staff that he is coming back next year. I'm kind of surprised by that decision, to be honest. I think that as an older guy, if he was just looking out for his football career, maybe it would be the smart time to go see if he can make the National Football League. But I think he values education quite a bit, and he has pretty much said and made it clear that his plan is to come back and try to finish off his degree. So that would negate the need to recruit a punter this year. So I think you'll see them do that next year. Thoughts on Jeremiah Payton? Disappointment, man. I mean, it's like, he didn't look like he was an average talent when he showed up, but he's turned out to be an average talent so far. Maybe he ends up being like Mark Pope and Wiggins and busts out next year or whatever. But, I would say as we near the end of year 2, that it's been a little disappointing. And, we'll see where it goes from here. I wouldn't be shocked if he transferred. He can't be happy with the way things have gone so far. You've got 3 receivers that are pretty decent coming in the recruiting class, so it's going to become a more crowded position. And, we'll see where it goes. But if I had to say right now, my thoughts on Jeremiah Payton, it would be that his career at Miami to this point has been disappointing. Let's see. Next question. A little worried about this game against Duke. It's going to be cold. We haven't really played very well off byes. Road game, cold night, super bye week, bad team we should crush, and the COVID taking out some of our players. Yeah, I mean, you could put all those worries into the equation. I think Duke has bigger worries. I think that they've gotten their butts kicked. They've given up 56 points the last 2 games. Those kids got to be done. I can't. I don't. I'm amazed. I'm amazed if they even show up at the stadium Saturday. Seriously, I mean, like, those kids can't want to play this game. I mean, this is not a normal going to play Miami game for Duke. I know they've beaten Miami 2 years in a row, obviously, but this is not the same. The way this season has gone for them. And I'm not expecting Miami to have a lot of problems with Duke on Saturday. We'll see. Do we still have a shot at Jason Marshall, the cornerback from Miami Palmetto? I think until he signs, you always have a shot, but we have seen no sign at all that he's going to defect from the Gators. So I would say that we expect, unless that changes here in the next 2 weeks, we expect him to sign with Florida. Is Navon Donaldson ready to play? How many reps is he good for? I think they would prefer to not play him very much. I don't think he's in great shape. Hasn't played football in a while. We talked to Coach Justice about him a little bit today. I got the impression that they would prefer that they don't have to really play him a lot. But if somebody gets hurt and they get into a situation, I think they're prepared to put him in. So we'll see how that goes. All right, guys, that's going to do it for tonight. I want to thank Leon Cyrsi for coming on the show. Great segment talking about his book. If you get a chance, pop over to Amazon.com, Fourth and Dam, and take a look at the story of Leon Cyrsi and some of the ups and downs that he's had in his career. I thank everybody else who participated tonight. The Canes will be at Duke on Saturday, and we'll see how that one goes. And just take it one day at a time here as we get down the stretch of the season. So for now, we'll say good night, everybody.